12 o'clock on your Monday afternoon. It'd probably help if I turned on the correct microphone so we could actually hear each other. But yes, it is the halftime show. Tyler Head along with you today. Terry dealing with some family stuff. Certainly wishing for the best for him. He should be back sometime this week. So Dimitri, the always reliable reliever, coming in out of the bullpen once again to be today's Terry Ford.
If you are watching on the game TV, you will see I'm not in my usual setup. I have moved my microphone, my entire setup to my bedroom so that I can watch Olympic volleyball while we do the show today.
Oh yes, I had that on in the other studio. I think now I'm in this different studio now, but nice little back and forth between America and China there, huh?
Well, I mean, in this game, for the most part, China is just beating the dog crap out of us right now.
Okay, well they must have really put it on since I left the studio a couple minutes ago. But for a moment there, America was hanging tight.
Yeah, it's very close in this particular game, but we are down 2 games to none at the moment. So that is not looking great. But look, we'll check in on the Olympics here and there throughout the show. But really, Tyler, like college football has begun in earnest. I know we talked about this a few weeks ago when I was on with you, and the guys were getting ready to go to SEC Media Days, but
Mhm.
camp starts this week for most teams.
It does. South Carolina will get rolling at the end of the week. We'll get the last media availability with players, hear from some coaches as well, and then we're off and running. We're 33 days away from South Carolina kicking things off against Old Dominion, so 26 days away from week 0 for those
Yep.
that are into that, which I very much am. And yeah, I can at the end of the week we'll be definitively able to say there is football this month.
Yeah, so 26 days away from week 0, 33 days away from all the SEC teams kicking off, which means even though Texas and Oklahoma are now officially members of the SEC, we will not get to see the new SEC in all of its glory for a little over a month. That it got me thinking about something, Tyler. And this is not just the SEC. Like you could say this about the Big Ten as well, which expands to 18 teams this year, add in some really good teams out of the Pac-12. But let's focus on the SEC. Is an SEC schedule going to be good enough for the college football playoff? If you're a 10-win team, just being in the SEC, do you think that's going to be enough for the college football playoff? Or do you think they would look at someone like a Texas, an
Hmm.
Ole Miss, obviously the one everybody points to is Missouri, and say, if you have 10 wins and you don't get the right one, those 10 wins may not be as strong as another team's 9.
I think it does have to do with your overall strength of schedule, and I think it's going to be really important going forward to challenge yourself when it comes to out of conference. And you mentioned Missouri, and I was talking about this a little bit earlier as well. Their non-conference is quite frankly pretty embarrassing overall. Murray State,
Outside of
Buffalo, Eastern
Alabama, their
Carolina,
conference is
and
pretty
UMass.
embarrassing.
Yeah, and they don't draw, Georgia. They don't have Texas. They don't have a lot of top teams outside of Alabama. And I mean, we don't really know what Oklahoma's going to be by the time they get there. So they could have a weak overall conference and non-conference slate when it's all said and done. Mississippi State, Arkansas, yeah, no teams that really move the needle there. So I know I expect Missouri to be a pretty good team, but them being 10-2, I
Yeah.
think isn't a definitive yes. They're definitely going to be in kind of thing.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And I would say take a look at Texas's schedule too, because even though they get Michigan in the non-con this year, name your favorite player from Michigan's offense. He's not there anymore.
Right.
Like it's a major rebuild. I think the Wolverines would be lucky to make even the 12-team playoff field this season. So you look at the conference schedule and you are really hoping that LSU, Oklahoma, and A&M kind of rise to what some people think they could be, because Georgia is the only definitively hard game on that schedule. I think you could say that, I might be wrong about this, but I think you could say the same thing about Ole Miss. I think Georgia is the only definitive top 10, top 5 team on that schedule, because their quote unquote marquee non-conference game is at Wake Forest.
Yeah, and we were actually talking about this earlier too. When you look at Ole Miss, who's got to come here in early October. I mean, they're going to have to go through the likes of Furman, Middle Tennessee, Wake Forest, Georgia Southern, and Kentucky before taking on South Carolina. I mean, they're definitively probably going to be 5-0 pretty easily coming here to play South Carolina. And that's a team that I don't even think we're going to know a whole lot about at that point in time because those wins should come pretty routinely for them.
Listen, Middle Tennessee has an SEC head coach now, so never say never. But I think you can probably safely say never on that one. No, I agree with you. I also look at Ole Miss with a particular raised eyebrow, let's say,
Mhm.
this year, because certainly the expectations have never been higher for the Rebels, but they've
Sure.
never had a team this talented. Like, if they don't win 10 games, probably more than one thing, but at least something has gone seriously wrong. And I'm not saying that if they don't win 10 games, Lane is on the hot seat. That's not what I mean at all. I just think that if you're a fan of that program and you look around what the new reality of the SEC is, if you can't do it this year, man, maybe you just can't do it.
Yeah, I was gonna say it seems kind of like a all chips pushed to the table type of thing with what they spent in the transfer portal, including getting a guy like Juice Wells here from South Carolina and building off the momentum that they had from last year, which they do have a fair amount of guys returning as well, not just the new guys that they have coming in via the portal. So it's like, yeah, if not now, then when? I think they, much like a team like Ohio State, would deem it completely unacceptable if you miss the college football playoff in an expanded field with how loaded your roster is.
Well, yeah, it's funny you compare them to that team because the one gamble I think Lane is taking this year is assuming that you can let Quinshad Junkins go to Ohio State and recreate what he was for you with a larger running back room. That is a singularly talented dude that does what he does in college football right now. I think it's a big gamble. I think Ole Miss overall will be okay. Like, I think they're going to get to that 10-11 win mark. But man, you got to have some real confidence in the rest of the roster to let your single best player walk like that.
Yeah, I do kinda wonder because, of course, Ohio State ponied up the money through NIL to
Yeah.
help them build that roster, and obviously, Ole Miss was doing the same thing, so I wonder what the disparity in those offers were between the 2 schools that led Judkins to becoming a Buckeye.
I've heard it was as simple as Judkins said, "This is the number," and Ole Miss said, "We're not going to play this game. Good luck to you."
Yeah.
You know, and he's one of those dudes that, like, you could say whatever you want about Ohio State paying the asking price. Dude, if he had come on the market earlier, I guarantee you Carolina would have rushed to pay it too. He is
Yeah.
that kind of
Oh,
talent. Uh,
and he I was gonna say, people use that as such, like, a negative spin on things. "Oh, they just, paid for these guys out of the portal," whatever it may be. That's the game. Like,
that's the
that's the
game.
game these days. Why I like, don't hate the player, hate the game. That is what it is, and if
Yeah.
you have means, you're gonna use it to your advantage, trying to build the best roster possible. That's just the sandbox you're playing in.
Yeah, for sure. And look, there are a lot of those kind of rosters in the SEC. And so, as we talk about, is 10 wins going to be enough for certain teams for certain schedules? I want to ask you this, Tyler, because I was talking to my friends over at SEC Unfiltered, and we are dropping our team, I don't know what you call it, like game by game picks, right? Like our team pick every game, pick every record in the conference leading up to the start of the season. And Chris, who does our projections, came up with 5 SEC teams that he is comfortable saying will be double-digit win teams this season.
Okay.
Um, Seems very high, but that is kind of what happens when you expand, right? Like, there is
Sure,
more
sure.
room at the top. The top is a little bit bigger. So
Yeah.
here's my question. Let's say we have 5 10-win teams, or hell, let's say we have 6 10-win teams.
Okay.
How many teams do you think are like, well, of course the SEC would get that many in the college football playoff? Where do you think it starts to become, okay, it's a stretch? And where does it become, okay, the college football playoff is clearly overvaluing the SEC compared to other conferences?
I feel pretty comfortable saying 4 is a pretty solid number. I think no matter who is playing in Atlanta, win or lose,
Mhm.
you're getting in, and I don't think that I'm interested to see how the committee views losing a conference championship and how far that might drop you, or if they just keep you where
Yeah.
you're at, like they did with TCU a couple years ago. But I think definitely 4 is what I feel comfortable with, and really depending on what the other conferences do, maybe a 5th team. But I do think that's
Mhm.
a little bit of a stretch. Terry and I kind of went through and looked at the prior 10 years of the college football playoff and how many SEC teams would have been in. And I don't think there was any year where more than 4 teams would have been in based on the criteria that we're using for the 12-team playoff.
All right, so I kind of agree with you. I think it's hard to think there won't be 4. Some, like, it does seem like Texas, Georgia, Alabama, Ole Miss seem like pretty safe bets. If we're getting to a fifth, like I would put my money on Tennessee, but maybe like you could talk me into Missouri or LSU, depending on how the season plays out. If you look at what the other conferences could do this year, you can't talk me into more than 3 Big Ten teams. There's just such a big drop. Like obviously, Oregon and Ohio State are the class of that conference. I think Penn State is good enough to be in the playoff. After that, there's a huge drop to whoever you think number 4 is, whether that's Michigan, Iowa, whoever. So let's say at most 3 from the Big Ten. Unless Miami does not win the conference, the ACC is a one bid league. And the only way that the Big 12 is a multiple bid league is if the 2 teams play in the conference championship game, because the 2 favorites are Utah and Kansas State, and they do not play in the regular season. So they could come in undefeated, or if they come in one undefeated and the other 11-1, and the 11-1 team wins the conference championship, okay, maybe, but that's a really extreme case. You got to find room for Notre Dame. You got to find room for whoever the best non-Power 5 team is. If we get to 6 and every single at-large team is either SEC or Big Ten, at that point, the committee is sending you a message. We may be saying Power 4, but it's really Power 2.
Yeah, and I feel like at that point, they would probably try and circumvent something where they would try and squeeze in maybe an additional ACC or Big 12 team to not show the bias towards the Power 2 conferences. But if those respective conferences cannibalize themselves to a degree, you might have no choice.
Yeah, I think that when you look at what the predictions are for it, let's look at the Big 12 specifically, because I think Utah is a really good team, but remember that their 2 best players did not play last year. Cam Rising, the quarterback, and the tight end whose name escapes me. Like, if you really do think Utah is the class of the Big 12, you are betting that those guys are at the same level they were in 2022. And I don't know that that's realistic. I think the committee probably wishes that there was a little more balance in that mid-tier 2 conferences, the Big 12 and the ACC, than there are right now.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's Brant Kuithe is the tight end that's been injured
Kuithe,
for the past years, but, and Cam Rising's playing his 14th year of college football at this point in time. But yeah, I do think their physicality with how they play defense is certainly gonna help them out a lot in a conference that is very much wide open, so it wouldn't surprise me at all if they're playing in Dallas at the end of the year, but that's kind of the thing about the Big 12 is there's always kind of those random upsets and teams that have no business beating better teams, like what BYU slaughtered Oklahoma State last year after they had beaten Oklahoma in Bedlam, so you just never know what's gonna happen out there.
No, that's very true. As we sit here and talk about the college football playoff and what it could look like come, I guess, December, we get started. Wow. As we talk about that, I don't think anybody questions that Georgia has the talent to be there, but I wonder if we aren't on the verge of something that Kirby Smart would rather avoid in Athens. We'll get into that next. He is Tyler Head. I'm Dimitri Ravanas. We are hosting today on, what are we? We're the halftime show, right?
That is correct.
That's right. On 107.5 The Game and the Game Network. You got to get a better name for this show.
All right, is it just these 4 cuts? Is that all you sent?
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, that's all. Okay, cool.
You need a better name for this show.
It's been halftime for.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, mine's the extra point, and I one day randomly called it the Tyler Head Sports Experience, and Jay has been pushing for that to become the actual name.
I was about to say, like, you two have an advantage of alliteration here. Like Tyler and Terry would be, or Terry and Tyler, however you want to do it.
That might not be too bad.
Yeah.
I don't know what the legacy of these names is. I'm sure they've been around for a long time, like this station has.
It has been the halftime show, and the afternoon show was, what is it called? The late game?
It was it used to be Game Time.
That's right. Those have been the names of the show since Heath first brought me in 2018.
Okay. Yeah, well, now the Game Time is the post-game show. So
Right.
it keeps along with the theme of everything else. In case you didn't know, we were a sports station.
Right. That's right. That's right. I hope everybody has their photo with their polo shirt on.
Right. Oh, we do. It's on the station website.
Yep. Damn right it is.
You need to know steroids and surgery and painkillers are no longer your only option. So learn
the folks on the folks on the internet can hear us talking during the break, can't they?
They can, yes.
Yeah.
There's no way around that on the live stream.
Oh, listen, I will just do my best not to cuss, but I have a buddy that's listening. Hello, Paul, who just said, "Am I supposed to be hearing you talk shit on the names of their shows right now?"
That's not Fine Mom, is it?
No, not Fine Mom.
For nearly 30 years, we've continued to be the proven leader in the roofing and waterproofing industry. Midstate Roofing's proven history is your assurance that our professionals at Midstate Roofing will provide the
This is everybody's peek behind the glass.
That's right.
In a manner both safe and pleasing to your operation. From high-rise to hospital to manufacturing to industrial, Midstate Roofing designs and installs bonded systems with a protective guarantee that will keep your operation dry and running long into the future. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And this is
at the risk of sounding racist.
Oh,
it
goodness.
is amazing in a sport like volleyball, where height is an advantage, that China could be just taking it to the U.S. the way they are.
I thought like there were varying sizes depending on where you played on the court.
I guess so, but like you look at every team's front line, and like the U.S. and the South American teams are so much bigger at the net than everybody else.
Interesting.
This message is sponsored by the South Carolina Department of Social Services.
Do you remember your first Gamecock game? Who you were with?
I've got men's gymnastics on for some reason in here.
Oh, sure.
I should probably change that.
I did did you know, so about a month ago, Peacock did a deal where you can get the entire rest of the year for just $20.
I wish they would have offered that to current subscribers.
Yeah. I got it specifically for the Olympics, and it has been terrific because, with nothing being on live in prime time, and volleyball, both beach and court, being my jam. Like, I really love watching it this way.
Right.
Compares to their customer service and quality. And now the guys at Integrated Media have expanded their brand to provide a state-of-the-art golf simulator experience next to their offices in Pro Swing is what it's called. The golf simulators by Golf Zone have automatic tees. You don't have to bend over to set up your next shot. Amazing swing plate moving up to 24 different directions for a truly lifelike experience. The playing surface has simulated greenside and fairway bunkers, even 2 different cuts of rough to bring a real.
I was educating myself on water polo earlier this morning watching that.
Oh, sure.
I had no clue how any of that worked.
My dad really understands it because it's huge in Greece. But for the life of me, as best I can understand, is if you can tread water and you can throw, that's pretty much all of water polo.
I guess, I mean, I just think about it, like you're literally using every bit of muscle in your body for that. That you got to be like dead the next day.
When I was younger and would watch the Olympics with my dad, like he could tell you what a penalty was. Like sometimes you can hang all over your opponent and sometimes you can't. It's strange.
More power to him.
It's very much a vibes kind of sport.
I guess so. I was never a good swimmer anyway. Welcome back in. Halftime show. Tyler Head, Mitra Vanos along with you on this Monday. Terry will be back probably sometime later on this week. Quickly, before we get into our next conversation, I want to remind you the Ultimate Season Ticket Giveaway has returned. Your chance to win season tickets to all South Carolina home football, baseball, and men and women's basketball games through the 2024-2025 sports calendar. Brought to you by your friends over at the Men's Clinic. Keep on the lookout. Go online to 1075thegame.com and register for your chance to win the Ultimate Season Ticket giveaway. Jumping into this conversation that you teased at the end of that last segment, lots been going on in Georgia. Of course,
Yes,
they're
yes.
the team that is favored by many to win the national championship. They just have to make sure they have enough players on the roster to get there. The most recent iteration of problems was Ra Thomas's recent arrest and subsequent suspension from the team, which that coupled with all the driving violations they've had going on this entire offseason and going back the past couple of years has raised a lot of questions about what's been going on there in Athens under Kirby Smart.
So let's be clear as we have this conversation, right? The Ra Thomas thing is very different from the driving issues. The driving issues is a systemic problem within the program. And I'm not saying Ra Thomas is not a part of or not a different bend on the same kind of problem. He had a similar issue last year. Kirby chose to keep him on the team. You know, you could definitely dock points from the team for that. But Ra Thomas made a conscious decision to do what he did. He was not operating as if he was above the law in that particular moment. Overall at Georgia, though, there is a culture issue, right? Like, no matter what you think of Kirby and his staff as dudes, and I'm sure they're all good guys that do not want their program to be operating the way it is when it comes to interactions with the Athens Police Department, particularly the traffic unit. There is an issue where no matter how they've gone about addressing it, they've not done it right because this keeps being a problem. And I wonder, Tyler, all right, everybody listening, bear with me because I am not comparing the severity of what Art Briles oversaw at Baylor or what Joe Pa oversaw at Penn State to a bunch of reckless driving and speeding charges. I hate to compare the severity of crimes, but I think we have to acknowledge that the issues were much, much bigger at those two schools than they are at Georgia right now. The difference is Georgia is the absolute class of the NCAA single most profitable product, right? So at some point, the NCAA or the SEC is probably going to get tired of being embarrassed, are they not? Like, I just have it hard. I just find it hard to believe that somebody in an administrative role has not sort of put Georgia on notice of this cannot keep happening.
Yeah, I'd imagine something has to come down the pipe at some point, and I don't believe that Kirby and staff are just sitting on their hands every time one of these things happens. I do think they're trying to make a difference. And again, the thing with driving violations, which are far less severe than what happened with Ra Thomas or what happened at those other institutions, as you brought up, but it's still an issue. And is this because the players are getting money from NIL and having these nice cars or whatever it may be? Do they feel like they're above the law in these situations or whatever it may be? I don't really know the answer to that, but it's something that at some point, and you always kind of hope with these kind of things, that at some point these student athletes, the 80 to 100 some odd, however many of them are on the roster, can look themselves in the mirror and kind of realize like, hey, we're screwing this up here for our entire team, our entire program. Let's try and clamp down on this. But again, when you're trying to wrangle that many people in and get them to think a certain way, it's not always going to be successful.
No, 100%. And you asked, could it be about NIL? Could it be about their standing in college football? Some of this is about 18, 19, 20-year-old guys being 18, 19, and 20 years old, right? Our buddy Josh Pate talked about this on his Late Kick podcast earlier. I believe this was at the very end of last week. Maybe this was Friday's show. But he said as much as we are all pointing to Kirby Smart, Kirby cannot be the face of discipline at Georgia.
Kirby Smart can do all he knows to do there. Kirby Smart's going to have team after team after team. Kirby Smart can coach as long as he wants to. The seniors in that group got one more go around. It's their team. It's their responsibility. They got to take it upon themselves to police themselves. That's not absolving the adults in the room. Above and beyond the adults in the room, the best teams out there are not coach-led. The best teams out there, the ones that'll be there at the finish line, the programs that are there every single year in the mix, they're not there because the coaches look over players' shoulders constantly. They're there because the coaches don't have to look over the players' shoulders constantly because the best teams are player-led. And so if Georgia's worth its salt, The players will take care of it there.
He's right and he's wrong simultaneously, Tyler. He's right that the players, especially the senior leaders, have to buy in. And I don't know how they would go about doling out discipline, but they have to be willing to do that with their teammates. Where he's wrong is the players are not the ones getting paid millions of dollars to create a culture. Like, that is some really like obtuse thinking in my mind about, oh gosh, the difference between a championship culture and literal lawlessness is the players buying in. That is so simplifying what the problem is there.
And for any of us that have, played in team sports in high school or college or whatever it may be, you definitely do know that when a teammate, especially a veteran teammate, a leader, tells you something, it's probably going to resonate maybe a little bit more than what a coach would say at some instance, because the coach, is yelling at everyone. And sometimes you roll your eyes at things that would say, but I agree with you that when it comes to the discipline aspect of it, that is up to the coaches. That is up to the program itself when it comes to suspensions or, sitting out or whatever it may be. Like the leaders within the locker room can't necessarily do that. Now they can try and incentivize you as much as they can to not stop doing what you're doing, so it doesn't lead to those kind of things. But it is a balance. There have to be things on both sides with the coaches as well as the leaders within the locker room to try and, put a stop to this.
Josh and his show, Late Kick, well, certainly better than I do. And I would think that Josh doesn't realize he's advocating for something I don't think he wants, which is make them employees, because that is sort of, to me, that is the problem with Josh's idea there, is that it should come from the players. I'm not saying that it shouldn't, but without sufficient university backup of here are the consequences, it does not mean anything.
Yeah, well, it's one of those instances that, you can't say, okay, well, we're going to take half your NIL money away. It doesn't necessarily work that way. But yes, if you're employees of the university and you break certain, laws or codes within the program, saying, okay, well, you've just cost yourself $5,000 of what you were expected to make this year because you did X, Y, or Z. So yeah, that's something that could certainly help in the discipline in a situation like this, whenever that comes to fruition, maybe in, next fall.
It is certainly an interesting year coming up in the SEC. Not only 2 more teams, but so many teams capable of being at the very, very top of this sport on a national level. What will separate them? What sort of new wrinkles are they not anticipating? And maybe we're not anticipating. Our buddy Paul Feinbaum will join us coming up next and talk about that. He is Tyler Head. I'm Demetri Ravanis. This is the Halftime Show on 107.5 The Game and the Game Sports Network. All right, how long here do I have?
And I'll let you intro Paul since you know him.
Yeah. How long do I have here?
You got like 4 minutes.
Okay, I'm going to run to the bathroom. I'll be right back.
All right. August 23rd at Charwood. Call 803-755-2000 to reserve your foursome. Hey, y'all, Jay Phillips here from my good friends at Dan's Van City in Harbison. Ceiling fans don't sound like something you think about a lot because you don't really need to, but when you've got good ones, they work so well, keeping energy costs down and your comfort level up. All kinds of fans at Dan's Van City, big to small and quiet, quality fans. They have accessories and light kits, fan blades, and more. Stop by and see them soon, Harbison Boulevard, next to Total Wine, or call Dan's Van City, 781-FANS. You'll be glad you did.
Bill Gunner for Zerez Carpet Air Duct Cleaning. It's time to take advantage of Zerez's carpet cleaning back to school BOGO sale. For a limited time, when you get 2 rooms of carpet cleaned, you'll get 2 rooms cleaned for free. You heard that right. When you get 2 rooms of carpet cleaned and mention me, Bill Gunner at 107.5 The Game, you'll get 2 rooms cleaned for free. Use promo code BOGO at ZerezColumbia.com or call in at 803-262-4020. Zerez, experience clean today.
It's the Love Chevrolet countdown to Gamecock football. 33 days till kickoff. No games, no add-ons, no surprises. No wonder so many people buy with confidence at Love Chevy. Almost $1,000 low price guaranteed. I-26 at Harbison and at LoveChevy.com. Together, let's drive.
For appliances with Reliance, Shepherds McGill.
Come see the entire line of Whirlpool appliances at 1421 Atlas Road. Whirlpool offers bigger, better, and more efficient appliances. And Jeffers McGill offers the best in customer service at low prices. Jeffers McGill and Whirlpool, your home team.
For appliances with reliances, that's Jeffers McGill. Powered by Integrated Media and Game TV. Sponsored by Chevrolet Glass, a true reflection of quality. The Game TV. Powered by Shepherd's Glass.
Healthy Connections Medicaid members, did you know you need to renew your Medicaid coverage each year? You can complete your annual Medicaid eligibility review or check your status online at apply.scdhhs.gov. Healthy Connections Medicaid members can now create an ID.me account to easily stay up to date and report household changes. Visit apply.scdhhs.gov to learn more. And remember, submit your review when it's time to renew. This message is from Healthy Connections Medicaid and paid for by DHEC.
Back for a limited time only, it's Firehouse Subs Barbecue Cuban Sub featuring slow smoked pulled pork, honey ham, melted Swiss, golden mustard barbecue sauce, chipotle slaw, and spicy pickle chips, all on a toasted sub roll. It's Southern roots with a Cuban twist. Try the Barbecue Cuban Sub at Firehouse Subs today. They make their subs differently because their subs can make a difference every day. At Firehouse Subs, a portion of every purchase.
Hey, this is Tyler at 1075 The Games this fall.
First responders across the country. Firehouse Subs.
How you doing today?
More subs, save more lives.
Fantastic. We are just about to come back on. Can I go ahead and put you on hold and get you on with me and Dimitri? All right, thanks.
Finally aerate or detach your lawn. Or
all right.
just want a great excuse to mow your super
Sweet.
fragrant EV. Either way, come to Cato's, where we have a ton of new rental equipment available for daily, weekly, and monthly rentals. Cato's Power Equipment is here to bring you solutions to keep your yard or your customer's yard looking their best. Give us a call at
Fantastic.
254-3711.
Brightest dishwasher in the land. Like a Bosch. In the desert, same like a Bosch. Wash the dishes like a Bosch.
Clean like a Bosch. Check out the selection of Bosch dishwashers at the Nest in the Vista.
When you have sports mixed with your pop culture, along with humor and celebrity interviews, your earbuds are enjoying The Rich Eisen Show.
Good to see the show, the Big 12 landscape. I just know how Dion is, where he's coming from. His wins are measured differently. The question is, as you said, it's got to go from 4 to 8.
I think they can do that. It would be hard not to get better considering how bad they were on the offensive line last year. Now, their schedule actually feels harder this year than it was last year.
Search for The Rich Eisen Show on YouTube or wherever you listen.
The opening ceremonies of the Olympics drew 28.6 million viewers. The first day of actual competition drew, it seems, across network television and Peacock, over 32 million viewers. We know you're watching the Olympics. We will talk about the Olympics coming up in just a bit. But first, my buddy Paul Feinbaum from the SEC Network and the Paul Feinbaum Show, which you can also hear on our sister station, ESPN 1320, is on the line with us. Paul, thanks so much for taking the time today.
Dimitri, my pleasure.
So this is something we were talking about in the last segment, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it, not only because of your standing with the SEC Network, but for people that don't know the whole Paul Feinbaum story, you came up in what I like to call the staring down the barrel of a gun era of Alabama football. The Paul Feinbaum Show did. Do you think that we're at a point where at some point the NCAA is going to be a little bit tired of its marquee brand, Georgia, embarrassing the sport over and over again with the sort of lawless culture that it seems like is there right now?
Well, Dimitri, I don't think the NCAA is really in a position to do anything other than for its president, Charlie Baker, to make a bunch of boring and uninspiring speeches about all of us coming together. I don't want anyone to think that I'm agreeing with what you just got through saying. I'm a great admirer of yours, and I think if I had nodded my head, we collectively could have created a problem that has a cultural problem. I don't think he does. I understand it's getting more difficult to defend that premise. I may die on that hill alone. I think the problem now is that when when players, especially at the best schools, are now going around in 100, 200, and I guess in Carson Beck's case, $350,000 cars, they will tend to go faster than the two of us who are just driving around in used jalopies, which won't go over the speed limit.
Well, let me, I guess, clarify real quick what I mean by culture problem. Because I agree with you that I don't think that like it is just purely lawless all the time in Athens. I think that no matter what you tell me, and you, the general you, not you, Paul Feinbaum, tell me about knowing that Kirby and his staff have addressed the issue or have, given the message to these players that this is not tolerable. Whatever it is they're doing is not getting through to the players. So clearly there is some sort of disconnect between what the expectation is and what is actually happening. That, I think, can be defined as a culture problem, even if it's not as severe as it sounds like on its face.
Yeah, and I believe they've done a lot there. I just don't think anybody's listening.
Yeah.
The good part about Georgia, they can afford to be disciplinarians. Whether they are or not, I don't know, because they have so much depth. At most schools, they can't afford it.
Right.
And the only time anybody hears about it, if there's a tragedy or an arrest, and half the time there's not even an arrest because most of these schools have a pretty good control over the local law enforcement.
Paul, what's kind of the line on this? Because obviously Kirby Smart's one of the best coaches in all of college football as of right now, so he's not going to get fired or pushed out the door just because these things continue to happen. But let's say the driving violations continue, and maybe you have an occasional player like Arara Thomas that gets into more serious trouble with the law. I mean, like, where does this go from here? What's kind of the line that could eventually be crossed, I guess?
Well, I think the good news for every coach is that by the end of the week, the players will be back on campus. Coaches tell me, and I know you guys hear the same thing, that the worst time of the year is that period when they're on their own, when they have all these toys and they're not under any guidance. And listen, if you have to be at practice at 5:30 in the morning or workouts, you're probably not as likely to act foolish. I just find these problems to be everywhere, but quite frankly, and I know I sound like I'm sitting here in Kirby Smart's office, which in fact I am. Georgia is just the biggest fish right now, and I don't know what he can do about it. I would be more critical, guys, if I don't think he's done anything about it. But I think after the tragedy of a year and a half ago, I think he talked himself into he was blue in the face, and quite frankly, these problems keep coming up.
We're talking to Paul Feinbaum of the SEC Network. You can hear the Paul Feinbaum Show on our sister station, ESPN 1320, this afternoon. I want to switch gears with you, Paul, because something we started the show with is what is possible in a much bigger SEC, and that is that we could be looking at 5 or 6 teams in that double-digit win range. And some of them, Georgia's a good example. If they get to double-digit wins, man, they have run through a gauntlet. But then you have teams like Missouri, Ole Miss, even Texas that could get to 10 or 11 wins without winning the one big one on their schedule. And I wonder how you think the college football playoff would respond to, say, a 10-2 Ole Miss that, might have won everything but that trip to Georgia.
Yeah, and I think ultimately that's where it's going to come down. So Missouri and Ole Miss have the weakest schedules. I think most people agree. And if they lose the big games, let's say Ole Miss loses to Georgia and LSU, and those are the highest ranked teams on the schedule. I think it all depends on not what we think right now is, but when your school, when your teams, how are they ranked at the end?
Mm-hmm.
I remember about 8 or 9 years ago, Alabama opened the season against Florida State. It was a 1 versus 3 game. Florida State tanked out under Jimbo Fisher, and Alabama was on the cut line of the playoffs. And many argue, hey, they beat the number 3 team in the country. Although it was hard to sell that later in the year when Florida State was 7-5. So that is really the key. And you're going to need help. It's like in NASCAR. I mean, you need to draft somebody occasionally around turn 4 to win the race, and that's going to be the same thing here. So if you're sitting there at 10-2, you're not guaranteed. I know all the talking heads in Dallas 2 weeks ago, Dimitri. Oh, hey, 10-2 will get you in. No, it won't. You might have a better school at 9-3. It's going to be about your schedule, and who have you beaten? Who you lost to is not really going to help. It's who have you beaten.
And Paul, with this being the first year of the 12-team college football playoff, where I'm sure a lot of people expect more parity across the board, when it comes to the committee, will there maybe be a little bit more of a push of trying to get as many conferences represented with that large bids as possible? Or is it going to be one of those things where the Big Ten and the SEC could dominate as many people might expect them to?
Yeah, I'm afraid of that because, think of this committee as the UN. It's a worthless organization, but they still show up every day and they end up screwing up peace sometimes or whatever else. And I think that's the problem because you get all the, college administrators are all smart in their own lane, but you put them together and they get stuck with groupthink and, oh yeah, that's a really good story. It's too bad. Let's get two schools from the Big 12 in because they were such a downtrodden conference, or the ACC. That's not the way it should be. I don't think they're going to go into it though saying we have to limit the Big 10 and the SEC. But I also think if you had to ask me what's a number, I think 3 from each, and could one get 4? Absolutely. But I think all of us, all the pundits who you and I talk to every day, oh yeah, SEC's definitely got 4. They have no idea what they're talking about.
I think that is fair. We're talking to Paul Feinbaum. The Paul Feinbaum Show airs on our sister station, ESPN 1320, this afternoon. Of course, you can watch him on the SEC Network. I'm gonna lay out sort of my theory for you, Paul, and this is why I think that 4, maybe even 5 SEC teams is not outside the realm of possibility. Not likely, but not outside the realm of possibility. Is I can't see more than 3 Big Ten teams making it. I think after Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, there's just such a big drop off to who that number 4 team is. You got to have room for Notre Dame. You got to have room for your G5 team. Unless Miami doesn't win the conference, I don't see another team good enough to be at large out of the ACC. And I think with the Big 12, you're looking at a situation where you have to have 2 teams playing at 12-0 or 11-1 in the conference championship game to get an at-large team in, just because of where they're going to be starting from in the preseason polls. Like, I feel like there is so much room for SEC teams this year that it may be hard to avoid overload in year 1.
I think you're right. If you had to say today, let's go ahead and put Texas and Georgia in, and then it's hard for me to believe that of the next group, Alabama, Ole Miss, Missouri, LSU, and Tennessee, you can't find 2 more. In the Big Ten, I know Ohio State and I know Oregon, but after that, is a 10-2 typically lame James Franklin Penn State team done enough with only West Virginia as their non-conference game? I don't think
Paul, if we don't put James Franklin's Penn State in the college football playoff, who will be the first team to lose a home playoff game? You got to think about history here.
Yeah, no, I think he's guaranteed because I would bet all of your net worth, Dimitri, that James Franklin would blow that first game, no matter how big a favorite he was over Liberty or money.
Right. He is Paul Feinbaum. Listen to the Paul Feinbaum Show on ESPN 1320. Watch it on the SEC Network. Paul, always appreciate catching up, my friend.
Pleasure was mine. See you, Dimitri. Thanks so much.
I'm not sold, Tyler. Like, I just cannot. And granted, Paul is dead on. We are talking about this based on what we expect to happen, not what has happened. Sure. I just cannot see enough contenders to block out or to avoid blocking out 4 spots for the SEC in the college football playoff in year 1.
It's tough to imagine, tough to envision right now, but we're also going into these expanded conferences where there's not going to be as much cannibalization. So you could have multiple teams from the Big 12 maybe being at that 8-1 mark in conference play that didn't play each other or whatever it may be. So a lot of unknowns going into this year.
I think that Miami is legit good this year. And I think NC State could be a dark horse candidate in the ACC, but I don't think I would trust that either of them would be top 8, top 10 programs that could be in contention for a at-large spot if they don't win the conference.
Right. Absolutely. We'll see what happens. We'll come back, wrap up hour number 1. It is The Extra Point. He's Dimitri Vanos. I'm Tyler Head here on The Game. There we go.
Yep. Sorry about that.
No, it's all good. I had started it in the background.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't even hear.
No, it's okay. No, you can't hear the break anyway, but I turned it down and started it just so we'd be on time. So we're good. It was just our outro. All right. Let's see what we have on the text message line.
This is Andrew Perloff with a Sports Minute. One thing is clear after Team USA basketball made their debut against Serbia. Even at 35, Kevin Durant is the best international basketball player in the world. He wasn't healthy for the exhibition games, and it didn't matter. He came off the bench and couldn't miss, most likely putting to rest any fear that USA will fall in its quest for gold. I'm Andrew Perloff.
Some people just know the best rate for you is a rate based on you with Allstate, not a rate based on Terry who keeps and makes the car behind them. Oh no, they're about to. Save with DriveWise on the Allstate app and only pay a rate based on you.
Not available in every state, subject to terms and conditions. Rating factors and savings vary, and in some states your rate could increase with high-risk driving. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
Guess what, people? Wendy's has new saucy nugs. You heard me. Wendy's nugs now come in 7 saucy flavors. Buffalo, honey barbecue, garlic parm, spicy ghost pepper. You can literally hear your taste buds after every bite. I'm serious. Listen to mine. Okay, that's just me playing with sound effects, but you got the idea. For a whole new way to nug, gotta be Wendy's.
Participating U.S. Wendy's.
It's time for mortgage protection with Preston and the top broker, Benji Getson from Buford Lending. Rates continue to fall. Hey, Benji, give us this week's mortgage rate.
Falling rates again this week and the lowest levels of 2024. Shop and lock your rate with Buford Lending today. VA 30-year fixed 5.8% and refinance your VA loan at 5.6%. APR 5.9. Right. 30-year conventional 6.6. APR 6.9. And jumbo pricing 6.7%. APR 7.0. USDA 5.9, APR 6.2, and investor loans, fix and flip, DSCR, no tax returns, no income, 7.4%, APR 7.7. So whether you're purchasing or refinancing, be smart and shop your rate with Buford Lending today. You will save thousands. You want to be a broker. Case subject to change. Equal housing lender. Credit restrictions apply. NMLS 170354.
For more information on how Benji and his team at Buford Lending can help you, visit them online at buford.mortgage or call 843-524-2404.
Less is more? No, more is more. That's why Taco Bell's new $7 Lux Cravings Box is stacked with all your cheesy, crunchy favorites. Think a beefy 5-layer burrito, a double-stacked taco, a Chalupa Supreme, chips and nacho cheese sauce, and a drink for just $7. Live Lux for less at Taco Bell and sign up for rewards to earn free food. At participating Taco Bell stores for limited time only while supplies last. Price and participation vary. Drinks exclude freezes. Tax extra. Rewards program subject to terms and conditions. Limits are not qualifying purchases.
Drivers who switch and save with Progressive could save hundreds, which could be life-changing. I mean, you could put that money towards that zero-turn lawnmower you've always wanted. And after using its edge-shaping technology to meticulously sculpt the face of the Mona Lisa into your grass, you'll become the undisputed king of Saturday morning lawn care, leaving your neighbor and sworn enemy Gary to question his place in the delicate neighborhood ecosystem. And it's all because you could save money switching at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, not available in all states.
Welcome back in. It is the halftime show. Tyler and Dimitri along with you on this Monday here on the game. Let's hit our Firehouse Subs text of the hour, 803-404-6100. Sam weighs in. This goes back to a conversation we're actually having a little bit earlier on this morning. Says that Coach Elliott, Sean Elliott, that is, going to be the biggest addition to this South Carolina team in 2024 as he takes over as both the tight ends coach and the run game coordinator. No, we're going to kind of get into the run game a little bit later on in the show, but a former head coach from coming over from Georgia State and former assistant here on the South Carolina staff. And I don't know if you're familiar with the intensity of Sean Elliott.
Listen, I covered the half season of Sean Elliott as the head coach of the South Carolina Gamecocks. I know all about it.
Oh, yes. That is something that people are very excited to have him back in the fold. And you kind of always need that high energy coach to, bang ahead against a locker and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. The U.S. women have stormed back and now could be on the verge of coming all the way back and taking down China in this volleyball game. You and I were talking a little bit off the air earlier. How are you following? What are you following in the Olympics?
I'm honestly, whatever's on, I watch. Particular things like basketball and swimming kind of go towards the top of the list. But I was watching water polo earlier this morning while I was Googling the rules of it and trying to understand what was happening because some of these sports are a little bit more obscure. They had the field hockey on yesterday, and what else? The equestrian was on the other day. I don't know how equestrian works, but if it's on and if it features America, I'll tune in.
Well, I made a point yesterday to watch two things. One of them, Team USA basketball. And man, if you missed the show that Kevin Durant put on, it was astounding. Take a listen.
Screen, there
James
you go.
Looking, finding Durant, fading, Durant hitting.
Oh my!
Kevin Durant owning Lille in the first half. And Spike approves. 21 points for Durant, 8 for 8 from the floor, and he's given the United States a 9-point lead at the half here in Lille.
The U.S. started slow against Serbia, and then Kevin Durant came on the floor, and Durant has been injured. He didn't play any of the pre-qualifier events. He came on the floor, and it was just like, oh, this is why people have been talking about this might be the best U.S. team since the Dream Team. And they just rolled. And then yesterday I made time to watch Simone Biles, who I think is just a joy to watch whenever U.S. gymnastics is on. For me, my sports, I only watch this at the Olympics kind of sports until we get to track and field, are the volleyballs, both beach and arena. But I think most people are probably following the headliners, right?
Yeah, probably so. And again, when you have like a brand like Simone Biles and Suni Lee with the Olympic gymnastics team that you tune in for, and I was watching that with my wife who did gymnastics as a child and kind of explained what was going on to me because I don't fully grasp how the scoring works and all that kind of stuff. I'll tune in for wrestling when that comes up here in a couple days. That's obviously a sport that I played myself and understand. But I don't know. There is kind of a joy in watching something that you don't fully understand either, and just kind of learning as it goes. Like, oh, was that good? I think that was good. Okay, now I understand what I'm looking for, type of thing.
Yeah, Jonah Goldberg, who writes for the Dispatch, tweeted, Simone Biles is better at gymnastics than I am at sitting home drinking and watching TV, and I'm pretty good at that. That is...
Now, I was going to say, are you the person that sits at home and whenever this professional athlete screws something up, you're like, ugh, I could have done that?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Listen, I am very critical of how much splash a diver gives off going in the water, how big of a step back a gymnast takes, landing a twisty sort of thing in the air. And here I am at 280 pounds going, disgraceful. Disgraceful.
Hey, there's still time to live out your Olympic dream. Don't give up.
That's right. I wonder how many people across South Carolina are taken in the Olympics by following the former Gamecocks. 11 former Gamecocks out there. Francisco Cerundolo, a tennis player from Argentina, is the only one that has seen real action. Obviously, Asia Wilson will be a part of women's basketball for Team USA. I believe they tip off this afternoon. Right. And then Quincy Hall, a former track and field star at Carolina, will be running, but no track events start until next week.
Yeah, I think there's always that local connection you try and look for. I don't know, Nick Harbor here wasn't too far off from, maybe be having the opportunity to be a part of the Olympic team himself, and he could be in a couple years as well. So I think there's always intrigue there, and gives you even a little bit more of a connection outside of just the United States aspect of it there. 1 hour down, 2 more hours to go. He is Dimitri. I'm Tyler. It is the halftime show on your Monday. Football, and more football coming up next in the 1 o'clock hour here on the game. Okay, when does it end? What am I looking for here with volleyball?
All right, so you see the two scores there?
Yeah.
One on one column it's 2-2 and the other it's what, 6-4. So
6-5.
it's the first one to win 3 games. So right now they both won 2 games and the score of this game is 6-4 right now.
I see. Now what are they playing to in the individual game?
I want to say if it goes to a 5th set, I believe they only play to 21. Otherwise they play to 25.
Okay. See, I'm learning.
Yeah. Beach volleyball is totally different. Beach volleyball is just 2 sets, and I think they only play to 17.
Okay, that's just doubles, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Doubles and just sweet asses.
I'm sure they're well aware of where a lot of their viewing audience comes from.
Yeah. It's funny. Have you seen any of the beach volleyball in this? Like, they're playing like literally at the foot of the Eiffel Tower. It's bananas.
I briefly caught a little bit of it yesterday, I think.
So I guess the temperature in France right now is such that if you are playing at night, you will see the women's teams in longer pants and like halter tops as opposed to bikini tops.
I think yesterday like mid-60s.
Yeah. Apparently, once the sun goes down, that makes that big of a difference that some teams were refusing to play if they could not do pants this year.
I'm sure the viewing numbers in the nighttime portion are drastically smaller than the daytime.
Well, listen, Tyler, some of us are just beach volleyball traditionalists, and we think this is a spit in the face of everything we love.
I'm sure you do. It's the one, when your wife walks in, what are you watching? I'm big beach volleyball fan.
Yeah. Although I will say this, after watching yesterday, because I really do like beach volleyball, I started doing research and see that we have enough schools in the SEC that sponsor beach volleyball that this should be on SEC Network all the time in the spring. What are we doing here?
How many schools do it?
So because beach volleyball is such a small NCAA sport, you only need 4 to form a conference.
Okay.
And in the SEC, you've got Carolina, LSU, Mississippi State, and Texas.
Okay.
And then if they wanted to, Nebraska and South Florida are independents. You could put together a 16 conference.
Florida doesn't have a beach volleyball team?
Shocking, right? Like every directional Florida does, but not Florida.
That is surprising.
Then out the door he went to install a mailbox. He was forgetting something. He couldn't quite recall. Then it hit him. I have to make a call. He ran in the house. He grabbed his phone. He quickly dialed 811.
It's funny, for the Barrett conference a few years ago, we were in LA and the conference was at USC. And we had to walk by what they say is their beach volleyball court to get to the building that the conference was in. The court is literally like an unbuilt plot of land. Like it's just this little square where they put up a net and filled it with sand. So it can't be like that expensive to invest in.
Right. Yeah, I wouldn't think so. I mean, gosh, we've seen those kind of things at, neighborhood places next to the tennis court.
Yeah, I was about to say, you could just go to either of the malls and take an empty storefront.
Right. Yeah, I don't think that's the entry cost is as much as, skiing or something.
Right.
Give your equipment some extra TLC. For all the parts, service, and advice you'll need, do it the pros do. Come to Cato's Power Equipment. Visit us.
So what is the deal with wrestling in the Olympics? Do they wait to start later?
I guess so. What day does wrestling start?
Because I would assume they probably use the same venues as like judo and taekwondo, right?
Yeah, probably. Let's see. Day they start. Looks like they do not start until August 5th, so that's the beginning of next week. Yeah, I guess so.
All right, if you want to get into this, however you want, I'll follow your lead. I'll just sort of get the quotes and ask my questions here.
All right. Hour number 2, welcome back in. It's the halftime show. Tyler and Dimitri along with you on this Monday here on the game. Again, Terry Ford hopefully be back here in just a couple days as he deals with some family stuff. Certainly wishing the best for him and his family. Want to remind everybody once again that the greatest Gamecock moment since the year 2000, officially live on the 1075 Twitter page. Going to have a poll up each day this week running through Thursday to determine your 4 winners, who will go into another poll next week to determine the ultimate winner, which will be on August the 12th and sponsored by our friends at Columbia Craft at 520 Green Street down in the Vista. Today's options are the World Series title in 2010 for men's baseball, the 2 College World Series wins versus Clemson in that same World Series, Devin Downey's 30-point game against Kentucky in 2010, and men's basketball's upset of Duke back in 2017. So head over to 1075thegame.com and vote for your greatest moment in Gamecock history since the year 2000. We certainly hope some of the greatest moments since 2000 may happen this year as well when it comes to Gamecock football, particularly when it comes to offense. Last year, we had Spencer Rattler at the helm. Offensive line wasn't great. Running back wasn't great. Wide receiver was kind of a mess with injuries and, all that kind of stuff. The only emergence was Xavier Legette working himself into being a first-round pick. We're hoping everything's a little bit more streamlined and doable this year across the board. And a lot of that boils down to what Dow Loggins is going to be able to do as an offensive coordinator. And I think a lot of people here feel like, last year he didn't get the full complement of what he needed to flesh out his entire playbook. And this year, again, hopefully that's the case. We can truly see what Dow Loggins is as an offensive coordinator.
Well, and the other thing too is he's really got and I say this as a compliment, not as an insult. He's really got a lump of clay at quarterback, right? He can really shape what Lenoris Sellers is as a college quarterback. But coming in with a guy like Spencer Rattler, that was a fully formed player at that point. Lenoris Sellers is really interesting. I'm the dad of 2 teenagers, right? And I've got like a 15-year-old daughter, especially. That's the age where you believe anytime you walk into a room, people stop what they're doing and start talking about you, whether it's good or bad, right? And I tell her all the time that it can be so free. Life is so much better and less filled with pressure when you realize nobody gives a crap about you. Right. And I think Carolina football is kind of in that place right now. And don't get me wrong, obviously, the people here are fans. We have a rooting interest. We want them to do well. When I say nobody gives a crap about you, that's not what I mean, right? Like I'm not thinking of you as like Boston College football. What I mean is there is not a roster here this year that feels like it is do or die, that feels like this is the year that they have to take advantage of a generational collection of talent. That allows Dow Loggins, that allows Shane Beamer, that allows this entire offense to build for the future. I think if we were looking at a South Carolina team that should be a 9-win team on the cusp of maybe the playoffs, maybe the Gamecocks would have been a little bit more serious in the portal and felt like they needed to go get a veteran leader. Personally, Tyler, I like turning it over to a redshirt freshman and seeing what it is you have and building for the long term. I wish more teams would do that.
Yeah, I do too. And again, the expectation that he's going to be your starter for the next handful of years, and maybe he's great enough where he can go on to be an NFL quarterback at the end of 2025. That's a bridge we'll cross. We'll get there certainly, but there's a lot of excitement with him, and with that comes lower expectations from a national standpoint, which is something we talked about a lot. Well, around the conversation of South Carolina at SC Media Days, where people really weren't expecting much out of them. 5 or so wins like they had a season ago, not really being a factor in the SEC. And Beamer and company have kind of embraced that. Like, yeah, we get it. We know you're not going to think highly of us, but we believe in what we have here on the roster, and we're going to go out there and improve your wrong. And again, maybe unlike a season ago where you had Spencer Rattler, you had Juice Wells, you had a lot of guys on defense people were excited about, and those expectations were, hey, you did 8 wins and knocked off 2 top 10 teams in 2022. Well, now you should take a step forward and be a 9-win team. And obviously the team was not able to live up to those expectations. So I do think there is something to be said about a team that is full of so many unknowns by bringing in so many guys from the portal and true freshmen as well, that it's okay to not really expect anything out of them and hope that they thrive because of not having those eyes on them the way they had a year ago.
Dow Loggins talked to Sports Illustrated about some individual new pieces on the offense. And when it comes to Lenora Sellers, he sort of said, there is this mold that everybody expects a starting quarterback to fit. And maybe that's not what we need Lenora Sellers to be. Maybe we just need Lenora Sellers to go out there and be Lenora Sellers. Here's a quote from what Dow Loggins told SI. Quote, "We have veterans that have played. We don't need him to be the outspoken leader. He needs to go out and play well. Earn the respect of your teammates by how you work, how you carry yourself, and how you're going to go about your business." I think that, and look, this is not me just being adversarial with Robbie Ashford to be adversarial, but Robbie's history at Auburn does not seem to suggest that they have their guy ready to go if Lenora Sellers can't do this. Like, it feels like Lenora Sellers is getting a pretty long leash here to figure things out. And I think that's the only way you can do this with a freshman.
Yeah, I think everybody would be completely shocked if Robbie Ashford emerged as a starter when the season rolls around. Now, I know technically Lenore Sellers hasn't been named the starter yet, just started coming out of spring, but all indications. And even like when you kind of read between the lines of like Beamer and his presser, like last week, when he talks about quarterbacks, he talks about Lenore Sellers. So it's like,
Right.
yeah, we kind of know which way this is going to go. But I think that's a really good point. And,
Yeah, respectfully, if Robbie Ashford is your starter, you're planning to run the Wildcat all season long.
I was going to say, I don't think people would have high expectations that ended up being the case, but Lenore Sellers doesn't come in here having to be a Cam Newton, like when he was at
Right.
Auburn in 2010, where he took a team of schlubs to a national championship where none of those guys, outside of, I think, one guy on the offensive line, ever even played in the NFL. You know what I mean? So he's got pieces around him. He's got a veteran in his running back in Rocket Sanders. He's got a guy in Josh Simon and Brady Hunt at tight end that can be reliable. He's got wide receivers from across the board that have played in multiple places, as well as a guy like Nick Harbor, who should take a step forward this year as a wide receiver as well, and a lot of veterans up front on the offensive line. So it's the thing of just get the ball to your playmakers, take care of things, don't make stupid mistakes, which there's going to be some mistakes because he's a first-year starting quarterback in general, but try to limit those kind of things, and this offense should be successful because of that.
Well, let me begin my next comment here by admitting Dow Loggins has forgotten more about football than I will ever know, right? But I think that as a fan, if you are looking at Carolina's offense from 2023 versus this year, so much of what Dow Loggins has to, if I may borrow a line from the old TV show Quantum Leap, set right what once went wrong, is getting the rushing attack in line, right? And there's a reason Rocket Sanders chose South Carolina. Dow Loggins and he worked together at Arkansas. That's terrific. I don't know how much familiarity there is between a tight ends coach and a running back. That is the role that Dow Loggins had at Arkansas, but whatever. Like, it's enough that made Rocket Sanders want to be here with Loggins, and it was enough that Loggins can recognize that the season Rocket Sanders had last year would have been better if he came in at the weight he came into 2022 at. So he says, he told Sports Illustrated, Dow Loggins did, that he had Rocket Sanders drop about 10 pounds. He's playing at more of an ideal weight this year, or should be playing at more of an ideal weight this year. And look, as a fan from the outside looking in, I am saying that better be true, because I don't know that you can tolerate another season where you are ranked number 130 out of 134 teams when it comes to rushing.
No, that was perhaps the biggest detriment to this entire team last year, is that you had no semblance of a running game. And we kind of knew going into the season it was going to be a point to worry about, because you weren't able to get anybody out of the portal outside of Mario Anderson. And We didn't really know how he was going to be able to, take a step up from Division II to Division I. And he did a fine job, but certainly, wasn't an elite running back in the SEC by any means. Kerryon Joyner didn't work out moving over to that position from being a primarily wide receiver. And the offensive line obviously didn't help out either because, no matter how good of a running back you are, if you don't have the holes open up, you're going to have trouble, making things happen more often than not. But yeah, that was a big, area of this offense that was just missing a season ago. And I don't think it gave us the full scope of necessarily what all Dow Loggins can do. But we know based on the skill set of Lenore Sellers and what Sanders did when he was at Arkansas, playing with KJ Jefferson, that run game is going to be 60-ish plus % of the offense this upcoming year. And it should be based on those guys' skill set. And it'll be interesting to see how, Loggins kind of works with that and goes from there.
Well, listen, also, I think that it is fair to point out that the rushing game, whether it is when you have one of the 2, 3, 4 best running backs in the sport, like a George Rogers or a Marcus Lattimore, or you have just put together a really capable and sound backfield, like the rushing game is part of Gamecock football history. It just is. Like, this is a school that has a long pedigree of putting guys in the NFL, if not as stars, at the very least as contributors, but B, has a long history of being able to bail out the quarterback with a rushing game, whether that means, hey, we stop throwing it and we just start running it down your throat because we can't move the ball through the air, or whether that means buying some time for your quarterback. And there were times last year that things felt helpless. I did not necessarily blame any fan that was outspoken, be it on social media, on the air here with us, whatever the case may be. I didn't blame anyone for being vocally upset with Dow Loggins and Shane Beamer at the state of the offense. But I also think that you cannot judge a program under a head coach, under a coaching staff, based on their worst season. That's just not fair.
Yeah, absolutely. And you wanted to bring up, maybe a difficult question to ask as we head into the season as it relates to Dow Loggins, which we'll get to coming up on the other side. It is the halftime show. He's Dimitri. I'm Tyler. It is Monday here on The Game. Did we win? I couldn't see.
No, we lost. It went down to the very last point. We lost.
Okay. I'm like, it's up on the wall here, so I can't do both. Oh, that's not supposed to happen. I think Terry forgot to take a endorsement out.
Broadcasting live from the Herndon Chevrolet Studios.
Up to 20K off new Silverados.
Stop by or shop online today and see why Herndon Chevrolet makes you smile. Together, let's drive.
If you have tax problems and want to end the frustration of dealing with the IRS, grab a pen and take down this number. Hi, I'm local attorney John Ecton with the Ecton Law Firm, located right here in the Midlands. Let us show you what it takes to solve your tax problems once and for all. The first step, which can be one of the hardest, is to take action. Do something. Call me, set an appointment, and meet with me in person. Your first visit is completely free and confidential, and I'll show you how. Has
Snoop Dogg made his appearance yet today?
I've not seen him today. I saw a lot of him last night.
Oh, I did too.
I know you aren't old enough to remember the days of like Snoop Dogg being the scariest person on the planet, but it is.
Oh, I do not.
Yeah, it's amazing that he is so cuddly now from network television.
See, and like obviously I'm very familiar with this rap career, but like coming up, he was just more of like a media personality more than he was like an actual rapper. Like again, I knew about his rap, but he was doing 8,000 other things besides that was kind of what most people in my generation, I'd say, are more familiar with.
As I was, I want to say in 7th grade when Doggy Style came out. And I mean, it was a phenomenon, but part of what made it a phenomenon is literally you didn't know if he was going to go to prison for murder the week after it came out. Cause he was, he was a suspect in a murder case.
Right. And then, a couple years later, he's cooking muffins with Martha Stewart.
That's right.
One of them is a convicted felon.
That is a very good point. I've never thought of it that way. But yeah, he was sort of the first guy I remember just openly smoking weed on MTV.
Yeah, I mean, he's just kind of become the figurehead for it. I mean,
Right.
we were making jokes last week about him and the Olympic torch. Like, oh, you
Did you see
ever
that?
lit a joint with the Olympic flame? He probably has.
Did you see that that tweet that was going around of all the celebrities that got to carry the torch? And they're like, man, Snoop Dogg is the only one they gave a torch that looks like a blunt to.
That's fair.
Excuses and check out Ethos Life, the online easy way to get life insurance in 10 minutes. Ethos has rates that you can afford, like a $500.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Like whenever he pops up somewhere now, it's not surprising. It's just okay. This is what he's doing today.
It's like when you go to a bar and see a bunch of motorcycles parked outside. That used to be a place you would avoid, and now it's where you go to see Grandpa.
Exactly, right?
Ceiling fans don't sound like something you think about a lot because you don't really need to, but when you've got good ones, they work so well, keeping energy costs down and your comfort level up. All kinds of fans at Kansas City, big, small, quiet, quality fans. They have accessories and light kits, fan blades, and more. Stop by and see them soon, Harbison Boulevard next to Total Wine, or call Dan's Fan City, 781-FANS. You'll be glad you did.
Did you know? So the top 3 finishers, obviously, in the Olympics get medals, but in every event, the top 8 finishers get an Olympic diploma.
I did not know this.
They just say they finished in the top. They were one of the 8 best at what they do in the world.
These damn participation trophies are just getting up.
When did this begin?
That's the first time.
So they used to only come with medals from 1923 until 1949. Then in 1949, it went to the top 6 finishers. And since 1981, it has been the top 8 finishers.
Okay. So it's been going on longer than just the millennials, I guess.
That's right. Mr. Reagan, how could you let such a thing happen?
Unacceptable. Welcome back in. Halftime show. Tyler and Dimitri with you on this Wednesday. It is football, and more football in the 1 o'clock hour here on the halftime show. Continuing our conversation as it relates to Dow Loggins, offensive coordinator for the Gamecocks, as he gets set to enter year number 2. And were you as plugged in when this hire happened back in December of 2022? Do you remember what went down back then?
So I would be lying if I said I remember all the twists and turns, but I do remember the headlines of how disappointed and outright like openly revolting some members of the fan base were about this hire.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you look at Dow Loggins' NFL career, he was with some not so great teams,
right?
Dolphins, Browns, Bears. Now, yes, that was a lot of Adam Gase's influence, maybe more than it was Dow Loggins, but it wasn't exactly a hire that that invigorated a lot of people, so to speak.
As I recall, is it Garrett Riley? Is that Lincoln's brother? That's now the fact that he ended up at Clemson rubbed a lot of people the wrong way because that's who they wanted here in Columbia.
Exactly.
And when I say people, I'm talking fans. I know nothing about the reality of what Shane wanted.
Yeah, and Shane, stuck to his guns. The Dow Loggins was his guy, and there was the famous press conference where he, by name went after a couple people in the media that made its rounds. And I'm sure if Shane could do that over, maybe he wouldn't go that same route. But nevertheless, he believed in the hire that he was making with Dow Loggins, somebody that has been around the game of football for a very long time and, has coordinated offenses at the highest level, but just never done it at the college level before. And there was, as time went on and people got to know Dow Loggins a little bit, because he's a very personable guy. We had him on the station here last week. He can talk for hours and really brings you inside of his mind and what he's thinking when it comes to football. And, his thing coming in last year was, hey, I'm going to take Spencer Rattler's skill set, build the offense around him, and we're going to go from there. which was the complete opposite of what a Satterfield was doing the year before, who said, I'm going to take Spencer Rattler and serve him my offense and hope it works type of thing. So,
Right. And that sort of gets to what my question is about this season as it relates to the long-term job security of Dow Loggins here in Columbia. I
right.
do wonder if he is entering this season on something of a hot seat. And I think that you have done a really good job of cataloging all of the reasons that things did not go as planned last season,
Mhm.
right? But the offense is the difference between 8-5 in 2022 and 5-7 in 2023. I think Gamecocks fans are sick and tired of disappointing offense here. And
Sure.
that, by the way, long predates Dow Loggins. It long predates Shane Beamer. It is just a reality of being a Gamecock fan over the last, say, 8 to 10 years. I
Sure.
think with the new reality of the SEC and how much harder it is going to be to have those to do anything like like Steve Spurrier did of
Mhm.
3-11 win seasons in a row, I wonder if there isn't some impatience set in both amongst the fans and just maybe in the athletic department.
Well, and I think you can make the argument that can't every coordinator go into the season technically on a hot seat because
Yeah.
if things don't go a certain way, it's a lot easier to fire a coordinator than it is a head coach. And I mean, we thought that Clayton White was going to be let go, towards the end of last year with how the defense was going, but things kind of turned in November and he ended up, retaining his job. But yeah, I think if the offense can't make improvements from where it was season ago, and you're looking at another 5-7 type of year or a 4-8 type of year, then I think a guy like Loggins and maybe even White as well, if the defense is bad too, might be on the chopping block because they're expected to take steps forward this year. Again, you went out there in the portal and got tons of pieces that are supposed to
Yep.
be able to fit whatever you're trying to do, or else you wouldn't have brought him in here. You have a quarterback with a different type of skill set than what Spencer Rattler had, who was more of a traditional pocket type of guy that could run when he needed to, but wasn't his main MO. So you have this new guy, like you said, as kind of a lump of clay to mold however you want to. And if you can't do that, again, you're not going to move on from Lenore Sellers as the quarterback because he's your expected guy for the next couple of years. You would probably make a change at coordinator again.
I don't know. I think the portal makes it pretty easy to bail at quarterback if you really want to. I think for Dow Loggins, the question is going to be because you hear the tiers of job security in the SEC broken down in all kinds of ways. But I think everybody believes Billy Napier and Sam Pittman are very much in trouble. And
Mhm.
Clark Lee and Shane Beamer are kind of right there. I think that if the fan base is demanding that the program do something and Ray Tanner does not want to make the big move, I could see things unfairly coming down on the coordinators this
Yeah.
upcoming year. I do wonder, you mentioned you mentioned what Lenore Sellers means to Dow Loggins. I wonder if the quarterback situation buys him some time a little bit. I wonder if we see enough from Lenore Sellers where we all agree, okay, it's not there yet, but it's moving in the right direction. Does that, with the fan base I'm talking about, so we are talking vibes, not reality here,
Mhm.
does that buy some patience to let Loggins and Beamer keep working the kid the way they want to rather than throw him the curveball of a coordinator change?
I think that's a good point to bring up. If you see kind of those flashes of things as the season goes along, because look, as much as everybody would love for him to go on a Heisman campaign this year, probably not going to happen. But
Yeah.
if he shows those abilities and doesn't make a ton of mistakes, where you can see that this guy's definitely going to be the future of your quarterback room, for the next couple of years, then I think that could be something that Dow Loggins could maybe attach himself to. That if there is questions about his job security, it's like, well, you don't want, him to have to work with a different coordinator coming into his third year or second year as a starter, however you want to phrase it. So that is very possible. But at the same time, I do think, like I said a little bit earlier, where you have playmakers around him and guys that
Mhm.
know can make things happen with the ball in their hands. And if they're not getting their, right amount of touches that are not being used in certain ways, that is going to come back on Dow Loggins, not just looking through the lens of the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I look at Lenora Sellers, and by the way, I want to make it clear to everybody listening, I'm not rooting for Dowell to be on a hot seat by any stretch. I'm trying to take the pulse of the community, of the fan base, and figure out what the reality could be here. I think at the end of the day, no matter what you have added in the portal, you are talking about a kid that has thrown all of 4 passes in his college football career. And I get that what we like about Lenoris is that he can do a lot more than just stand back in the pocket and wing it. He might grow into, and I think it is fair to expect he could grow into, a much better overall weapon for the Gamecocks than what Spencer Rattler offered. But we are literally taking step number 1 in a marathon this year with this kid.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, this is somebody that, given the fact that he's a local kid from just up the road in Florence, people have been familiar with for a very long time. So there's this desire to want to see him succeed. And again, when he's a 4-star guy, there's a lot of hype. And for those 4 passes that we saw last year and the little bit of time he got to play and clean up against the likes of Furman and Vanderbilt, he was as advertised. So everything that you've seen up to this point tells you he should be that guy that he's been touted to be. But again, there's going to be, you're going up against Alabama and Ole Miss and Oklahoma and Clemson at the end of the year. Like, you're facing very stiff competition that he has never seen before in his life. How does he step up in those moments? And you don't necessarily have to go into Tuscaloosa and beat Alabama as much as everybody would like that. But if he can go in there and just show you a gutsy type performance where you see those inklings of what a superstar quarterback can be down the line, I think that would instill a lot of hope in people like, okay, this is our guy. We need to keep things status quo so we're not throwing him a curveball, as you said, going into the next offseason.
If we were doing this show today in, oh gosh, I don't know, who would I put in the same place as South Carolina, is kind of wondering what they are in the new SEC. If we were doing this show today in Auburn, Alabama, I would still be talking about South Carolina in this way of, I get there is a lot of anxiety about what your place is in the new SEC, but I think South Carolina is the exception to the you got to prove it this year instincts that so many fan bases that are not the Alabamas, Georgias, Texases of the world have as we start life at a 16-team conference.
I don't think they're necessarily in that prove it category, which, I think would be having to win, 8 or 9 games. I think you just have to show that you're taking a step back in the right direction. Because again, you can't ignore the fact that the first 2 years Beamer overachieved as a head coach. Last year was a step back. If you can add bare minimum, and I know it's a low bar and people want to think higher than that, if you can at least get yourself back to a bowl game, that means you've gone at least 6-6. You've stepped back in the right direction.
Tyler, I would lower the bar even more. If you can do this year what you did last year in a much tougher conference, I think you should feel okay with another year of Beamer, of Dowell, and staying on this track. John Whittle covers this team every day much closer than you and I do. Let's talk to him coming up next and see if he agrees with us. John Whittle from the Big Spurs right around the corner. You are listening to the Halftime Show on 107.5 The Game and the Game Sports Network.
Cool. What are we watching now? Is this archery?
I just put it on that gold zone thing, so I think I'm on men's gymnastics right now.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just on standard cable here. I think I'm watching archery.
This is Larry Light, owner and founder of Midstate Roofing. And for nearly 30 years, we continue to be the proven leader in roofing.
Well, I guess my next Olympics will have might have the flag football thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, did you see that? Wasn't there a story that Joe Burrow has said he intends to play Olympic flag football?
I'm all for it if he is.
Maybe we should have this conversation like next hour when we bring up the Olympics. I'm very steadfast in my belief that if your sport's highest competition is not the Olympics, you should not be in the Olympics.
That's a good point.
Now, I love Olympic basketball. I think it's a lot of fun. But as a Celtics fan, my hope for this Olympic team is that Jason Tatum does not play at all, or that it is that they win a gold medal.
You're off to a good start.
I was about to say, we're killing it so far.
The memes from yesterday of him not getting on the court were phenomenal.
Yeah. Did you see they had Dawn doing the halftime show with Mike Tirico,
Yeah,
And she talked about that, like, the toughest part of being a coach here is getting superstars to understand that, I'm sorry, there is a hierarchy. I can't play 12 guys in 20 minutes
Yeah.
or 40 minutes.
Yeah, somebody brought up the point, like, this isn't the all-star game. Like, we're
Yeah.
actually here trying to win a gold medal. And if I think keeping you on the bench is going to help us win a gold medal, I'm going to keep you on the bench. Like, that's
Right.
sorry, that's you're one of the best 12 or so guys in the entire world at this game, from our country at least, but like, you're not on the court today.
Yeah. That's I really, and look, I mean, Steve Kerr obviously knows way more than I do, but I really didn't get why you start Devin Booker over Ant. But like midway through the first quarter, when Devin Booker is throwing no look passes to everybody and hitting from the logo, you just got to accept that, like, oh yeah, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
Listen, I already appreciated Ant anyway, but seeing him do the DX crotch chop at Serbian players, it's like, this guy gets it.
On his podcast, Bomani said that he would give up Ant playing a minute in these Olympics to just have a camera follow the most Atlanta human being on the planet around Paris. Because he has probably only learned enough French to say, hey, baby, what that thing do?
Yeah, probably. Oh, man. He was supposed to make Georgia basketball something special.
It is. I think about this regularly watching him play. Like, it's a miracle Tom Crean convinced that dude to play at Georgia.
We were all very surprised by it,
Yeah.
which set the bar for what the Crean era was supposed to be astronomically high.
Yeah.
And it was a couple years of, like, because again, the portal wasn't really a thing, or wasn't as big a thing back then. It was like, well, wait till he gets his guys in here. Wait till he gets a roster full of his guys. And then 3 years later, it was a roster full of his guys, and they sucked.
Yeah. So that was the COVID season that they had Ant, right? That was 2020.
Yes.
And they weren't very good, as I recall.
They were not. No.
Okay.
Trying to think. That was 1920. Let's see. Oh crap! I gotta call John Whittle. Ugh. What am I doing?
Downtown Columbia and Gamecock football go hand in hand for the ultimate fan experience. Located in the heart of the city, their prime location offers easy access to all the action on game day, with home dates available for exciting matchups against Old Dominion, LSU, Ole Miss, Wofford, Missouri, and Texas A&M. There's no better place to stay for Gamecock football season. Book your room now by calling 803-227-3400 and let them take care of the rest. Enjoy comfort, convenience, and hospitality at Hilton Garden Inn, Columbia downtown.
What you're talking about. Sponsored by Love Chevrolet. On the Game
Do I need to hop on and fill time here? I'm Demetri Ravanis on with Tyler Head today. Terry is dealing with a family issue. I don't know, I talked to him last night. He said being back tomorrow is a possibility, but he is not counting on it. In the meantime, keep his family and him in your thoughts and prayers, and just hang out and enjoy the conversation with us. We were talking a little bit in the last couple of segments about Dowell Loggins and the overall outlook for South Carolina this season. And I don't want the whole conversation, Tyler, to just be about hot seat, hot seat, hot seat. I think that's such a lazy way to talk about college football, particularly when we have not even broken for camp yet in the season. But John Whittle covers Carolina for thebigspur.com. And John, I do want to ask you, what have you heard or seen or experienced players and coaches talking about what needs to change to reverse the course of last year's disappointment when it comes to the offense?
Well, I mean, it all starts up front, and it's also the easy thing to do to blame injuries on last year's offensive production, but it's a big deal when you go back and look at it. The talent wasn't in the right place from that standpoint, and certainly injuries to whether it's Jalen Nichols or Casey Henry or Marquis Anderson or Ja'Kai Moore or Nye Mansell or Vershawn Lee missing a game. I mean, you start adding all those things together, and it just doesn't give that group, really, really much of an opportunity to succeed. But, they were light on talent in other places too at running back. And Spencer Rattler is one of the best, probably the most talented quarterback to come through the South Carolina program, but there just wasn't enough there to be good enough.
And John, I'll pose a question to you from a conversation Demetri and I were having a couple minutes ago with Sellers coming in as first year starting quarterback, that is. Does that buy Dow Loggins maybe a little bit longer leash, given the fact that this is a first year starter and somebody that's playing a completely different style of quarterback than what Spencer Rattler was playing a year ago?
Maybe a little bit, but at the same time, like you have to, as a coordinator, be able to adjust and be productive. And, there wasn't really a whole lot of that was going on last season. And, I don't know that you can cherry pick a different excuse every year. Like, there's so much hype around Lenore Sellers and what he can be and what they think he's going to be. And a lot of that has come from Dowell Loggins too. So, yes, redshirt freshman, very little experience, but there's a lot more around him this year than there was Spencer last year. So, I don't know how many mulligans you get as an offensive coordinator. But I also don't know that you go into the season saying, he's not good enough or he should be on the hot seat or anything like that. You have to see how this season kind of evolves before you get to any point like that, in my opinion.
We are talking to John Whittle from thebigspur.com about the South Carolina offense. John, is there a scenario or maybe a game in the early going where even if the record is not what people want it to be, a great performance here could really silence a lot of the doubters when it comes to Dell?
I don't know if I don't really know if that's the case or not. I mean, I do think you want to see some continued growth because as you did mention, like Lenore Sellers is a redshirt freshman quarterback, and there are so many different pieces on the offensive side of the football who knew. Like, you look at it, Vershawn Lee has started 28 games. Ja'Kai Moore has started 27 games. The next guy with the most starts in the South Carolina uniform is Tree Babalade with 9, and Luke Doty is there with 8. Trevon Ball there with 8. So you've got a ton of new guys on the offensive side of the ball who just haven't played at South Carolina. So I'm curious to see how long it takes these guys to kind of get it going on the field. Have they been able to get it done in spring over the summer and in preseason camp, and then versus Old Dominion and be ready to rock and roll in week 2 at Kentucky to put up some good offensive numbers and to help that team go up there and knock off what will be a top 25 opponent in week 2 of the season. That's what I'm most curious to see, is how this offensive group comes together as a whole, because we mentioned 2 guys who have double-digit starts. One of those guys is probably not even going to be a starter this year, and at least to start the season. And Ja'Kai Moore, maybe so, but probably not. So, it's a pretty new offensive group as a whole. And Dowell is tasked with getting those guys to be playing pretty cohesive football pretty quickly.
And John, off of that, do you skew more glass half full or glass half empty with an offense full of so many guys that just haven't played little or at all here at South Carolina so far?
I lean more glass half full. I don't know how much we learned about Dowell Loggins last year. I don't know how much we learned about Lonnie Beasley last year as coaches and coordinators. Just because of, what they had to go through. Everything starts up front, whether it's offensive line or defensive line. Your defense isn't going to have much of a chance if the line stinks on that side of the ball. So, when I look at the offensive line, I see much more depth. I see much more talent. And, you kind of build off of that, right? You've got a lot of guys who have played a lot of football at the skill position. Joshua Simon is coming back at the tight end spot. I feel like Nick Harbor is going to grow tremendously over the course of the year. I lean more glass half full on what the offensive side of the football can be this year for South Carolina.
We're talking to John Whittle from thebigspur.com. In a conversation with Sports Illustrated, Dow Loggins talked about his familiarity with Rocket Sanders and said because of that, he knew looking at him playing last year that Rocket needed to drop about 10 pounds to play at an ideal weight. I wonder if you could shed some light for us on what their relationship was at Arkansas, because just with the naked eye, I do wonder what sort of interaction the tight ends coach and a running back would have day to day.
Yeah, well, I mean, a tight ends coach, Shane Beamer's talked about this a little bit in the past. Is your tight ends coach is really involved in everything. They're part of it from an offensive line standpoint. When you're blocking for a running back, you're part of a wide receiver room when you're going out and you're catching passes. Like you're so involved in so much when you're a tight ends coach. But Rocket Sanders was also an All-American, a couple of years ago. So honorable mention All-American, leading rusher in the SEC. He's been pretty good. So, you're as a coach, you typically have a relationship with a guy like that. So, I do think that Raheem Sanders can really kind of transform what South Carolina can be this year. I don't know that he needs to get back to 2022 form to really enable South Carolina's offense to be real good. If he can just get back to 90% of that, then that changes so much of what South Carolina can do offensively. Especially when you pair him in the backfield with Lenore Sellers, and also have some guys complement those two as well with Oscar Attaway, Warren Howell, Juju McDowell, perhaps DJ Braswell, perhaps. I think there is so many ways that Rocket Sanders can be beneficial to this team. And, he doesn't need to be, I don't think he needs to be, quite back to 2022 form. He might be, and he might even be better, but, even if he gets close, I think that's transformative for South Carolina.
John, last one for you here. You just ran through a bunch of position groups on the offense, but I'll expand this out to the entire team. Which unit on this team intrigues you the most that you're going to be keeping the closest eye on over camp when it starts at the end of the week?
Well, I mean, really, I hate to say on the offensive side of the football since that's what we've talked about, but I will. I mean, I think wide receiver certainly is the group that I look at, just because, we had somebody on our Big Spur message boards yesterday start a thread. Who do you think the top three wide receivers are going to be against Old Dominion? And I mean, there were probably 50 replies, and they probably had 50 different combinations of guys. Like, I mean, you look at it, like Nick Harbor has 5 starts, and like that's and Luke Doty's got 8, and everybody else is pretty darn new, right? Like there's so many transfers who have come in. Whether it's I haven't heard a word about Amari Huggins-Bruce out of Louisville. But he's in there. Gage Larvaday, and I feel pretty confident. He's probably the guy I feel most confident will be a starter in the opening game. But you look at him, you've got Delvon Campbell from Nevada, then Julius Jacobs from Florida State, Jared Brown from Coastal. Nick Harbor's growing, and you brought in this Mazio Bennett Jr. guy who's pretty darn good as a freshman. Who he was in my answer of top 3 wide receivers. I had Gage and Mazio and Nick Harbor. So I just think that position is so wide open that and there are so many different guys there who are talented and bring some different skill set that I think that is going to be probably the most difficult to pin down on what it looks like. Not only in game 1, game 4 and game 7 and game 10 and the last game of the year. I think it can certainly evolve over the course of the year, and it's probably a good thing that's about the easiest position to rotate some guys and be able to influence a game with multiple different players.
He's John Whittle from the Big Spur. Appreciate you taking your time for us today. We'll check in with you again as we get closer to the start of the season.
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me.
All right. Absolutely. Again, John Whittle from thebigspur.com. We'll come back, hit our Firehouse Subs text of the hour, wrap up today, or hour number 2, of Halftime Show. He's Dimitri. I'm Tyler on your Monday on the Game.
There we go. All right, moving along nicely.
Yes, indeed. So Terry only asked me about today. I don't know
Yeah, I have no
what else
clue
to expect.
what else is happening. He told me last night at, I don't know, probably about 10 minutes before he reached out to you
Yeah.
what the deal was. So I haven't talked to him outside of a couple of text messages today. So I really don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I know I can't do. Man, I may not be able to do the rest of the week, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, we got some guys here locally that have done some fill-in stuff before that he may try and hit up tomorrow if it comes to that.
One of them is Mike Gillespie, right?
Yes.
Yeah, he does some stuff with us over at SEC Unfiltered. I have not worked with him, but he is somebody that multiple people have told me that I need to get to know.
Yeah, he was really good. I did one of the days that Terry was out a couple weeks ago. We did, I think, a Friday show together, and he was good, very, very engaging. My thing when it comes to working with people is like people that can move the conversation forward instead of just kind of reiterating their point of whatever thought I bring up, and then having me move on to the next one. You know what I mean? So I like the back and forth, and Gillespie's good at that.
Yeah. How long do I have here?
You still got another like 2-3 minutes.
Okay, I'll be right back.
All right.
Online easy, so you can spend less time shopping and more time getting things done. Metal Supermarkets, the convenience stores for metal. Place an order online today at metalsupermarkets.com.
Get in zone, AutoZone. Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today?
Gotta take my oil.
How about Valvoline Restore and Protect? It restores and protects your engine to run like new.
Get in zone. It restores your engine to like factory clean?
And protects.
So Valvoline Restore and Protect restores and protects.
Now you can get 5 quarts with an STP extended life oil filter for $37.99.
Hey guys, it's Preston Thorne for your broker, my broker, Benji Getzi at Buford Lending. Buford Lending is a true mortgage broker offering the widest variety of government mortgage programs and the best experience for clients.
Great low angle shot.
Record low interest rates. Their goal is to make your next mortgage experience and closing easier, cheaper, and friendly. Don't wait, shop and lock your rates today with Buford Lending. Don't go to Wall Street. The rates are better on Main Street. Online at Buford.mortgage.
Hey, Cheryl. Hey, she's on vacation and lost in the moment. Unfortunately, so is her Chase debit card. It's gotta be somewhere. Maybe she lost it at salsa night. Pockets. Or maybe she lost
Appreciate the low angle shot there.
Oh, that's just for you, my guy.
Mobile app. She can lock her card till it turns up. Tools that help protect. One bank that puts you in control. Visit chase.com/checking. Chase, make more of what's yours.
Chase mobile app is available for some mobile devices. Message and data rates may apply. JP Morgan Chase Bank and a member FDIC.
What's the weirdest place you've ever done a show from?
Back in my rock radio days, we did a show in the Bahamas one year. And we were on this gigantic wooden platform, basically watching a hurricane roll in and blow out broadcast it.
That's nice.
Yeah, the plan was not to go to the Bahamas for hurricane season. It's just, once you get down there, you start to put 2 and 2 together why the tickets were so cheap.
Yeah, that probably makes sense. Well, at least you lived to tell the tale, I guess.
Indeed.
Blue Shield at South Carolina Medicare team can help you find
I did when baseball was in regionals. I was at my parents' house that weekend, and we had to do, because Elijah was in Raleigh, and we had to do like an hour pregame leading into the network coverage. And I went to the farthest back point of my parents' house, which is a bathroom, and set my stuff up on the counter in there, and like probably the weirdest place I've ever done a show from.
So back when 12:30 a.m. in Columbia was a sports station, I was doing shows for them, and the family was down in Disney World, and Disney did not have reliable Wi-Fi. So I had to call a friend from college that lived in Orlando that I hadn't talked to in a while and explain the situation and ask her if I could come over to her house and use her husband's hardwired internet to do a show.
That's fantastic.
Welcome back in. Halftime show. Tyler, Dimitri along with you here on your Monday on the game. Time to hit our Firehouse sub text of the hour, 803-404-6100. GB weighs in and says, Juice WRLD's played last year? ? Hardly. Well, yeah, you're right. But the hype going into last season for Juice Wells was significantly high considering how he ended 2022 and what he was expected to do in 2023. Unfortunately, after the first score in the Georgia game, we never saw him in a Gamecock uniform again, though he did seem like he was intending to come back for another year. And until old Lane swooped him up out there in Oxford.
I saw a list. I guess this was last night. I was looking at some various stuff about the college football video game, and Juice is apparently one of the 10 fastest players in the game. I knew he was fast. I never would have put him at top 10 in the country fast.
I guess that's not overly surprising. I don't know if I would have gone top 10, but very speedy receiver. And I don't know how many people here in Columbia are going to be playing with him in the game. But if you want a speedy guy that's not Nick Harbor, I guess you could go the Juice Wells route.
Speaking of people in Columbia playing with the game, I don't know if you saw this. I would call it a throwaway column on Sports Illustrated's website about what College Football 25 has revealed about the South Carolina Gamecocks. Now, listen, everybody. I love this game as much as you do. I was very football horny for it when it came out or when it was on its way coming out. And man, am I happy. But the thing everybody needs to remember about this game, and I will use myself as an example. Currently, as the offensive coordinator at Florida International, I have the team ranked number 4 in the country. You cannot learn anything in real life about what happens in this game.
Yes, that is very true. Much like my favorite thing is to see like when they ask like an actual NFL player or an offensive coordinator about like the plays they run in this game. It's like, oh, those aren't real plays. Like we don't actually run that play. And it's like, oh, really? I thought you actually did those kind of things. No, it's very much not like real life. It is purely for entertainment more than anything else. I will tell you this, and on Friday night going into Saturday morning, I had a dream that I was playing the game. And in the game, I was calling out what the defense was in. So I knew what to do, like where to throw and all that kind of stuff. And when I woke up, my wife told me I was mumbling very loudly in my sleep. So I was calling out those defensive coverages out loud, apparently, while sleeping. That's how invested in this game I am.
Nice. Well, here's what Jonathan Williams from Sports Illustrated says that we can learn about the 2024 South Carolina Gamecocks from NCAA 25. Number 1, Rocket Sanders will return to form. Not could, will. Number 2, Lenora Sellers' legs should play a significant role. And number 3, Nick Harbor needs the ball in his hands. Now, what do all 3 of those players have in common, Tyler? In video game form?
They're all highly rated.
And they all have significant speed numbers. That is the differentiator for everything in this game. Do you know what this game has taught me that could not possibly be applied to real life? Is when you are losing, just incorporate that Navy triple option playbook. It solves all of your problems. I can't imagine that anyone's going to be able to do that mid-game.
Or you just log off and restart the game.
Yeah, exactly. Just quit, come back tomorrow. Surely your opponent will be ready to play again by then.
Yeah, I think that article hit on a few generalities that I think that a lot of people could have assumed about this South Carolina team. Now, the Rocket Sanders one is more hopeful than anything, I guess, because like, well, we know what he is. We just got to hope that he stays healthy and can be that same type of running back. But yes, I don't think you're going necessarily out on a limb saying Sellers' legs and Nick Harbor needing to step up are going to be big keys to this team being successful.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think all of us that have been playing that game for years believe a lot about our ability to coach a team based on that video game. But you got to remember, man, it's not real life. It can't really teach you anything. It is a lot of fun. I think this year there are some really great little details that tell you how much the people making this game love college football. But this is not real life. Do not even give this column the time of day.
I will say the game can teach you the basic fundamentals of football because that's kind of what I learned football through. Like I knew about football watching of my dad and stuff until like I got on the sticks and was playing it every single day. I really understood the inner workings of how football actually operated. So from that standpoint, yes. But if you're trying to like the dude that sent off his resume to be the defensive coordinator of like the Packers, because like, oh, I've coordinated like 3 Super Bowl teams on Madden on the highest difficulty mode. Like, no, it's not going to get you there.
Yeah, that is for sure.
Absolutely. So I'm enjoying it though. Like I said, I'm already thinking of if I have time to play another game of it
Right.
today when I get home, which has kind of been my strategy to at least knock it out one game a day before I have to.
I've set a goal of 2 actual games played per day.
Now, do you play full length, like full quarters, or how do you do it?
Yeah. I mean, 5-minute quarters. Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
no,
right now as the offensive coordinator, I'm only playing offensive snaps.
I'm full 15. I got to play the whole
What?
game. I need the most realistic experience possible.
Tyler, you must have so much time on your hands.
Listen, with the accelerated clock, you can get through a full game in an hour.
How can you get through 15-minute quarters of David Pollock? You're an animal.
I'm one of a kind. Hour number 3 coming up next here on the halftime show on the game.
Now, see, I've got my sliders adjusted to where, like, you have the accelerated clock, you have the sliders, which adjust the defense and the offense, to where it's like a realistic type of game where, like, it's not going to be 70 to 69 every single time. Like, when I discovered those years ago with 14, like, I've never been able to, like, look back. I have to have the most realistic experience possible.
The that secondary broadcast crew, man, is a chore to get through.
Well, and I guess I need to adjust my audio sex. I can barely hear them because
Really?
the stadium noise is so loud.
Yeah.
Like, I can pick out a few things here and there, but I guess I'm kind of drowning them out too. But I rarely hear what they have to say.
Who are you playing as right now?
So I have one dynasty that is Georgia, and then I have one that is I'm the OC at App State, trying to work my way up. So we almost pulled a comeback against Clemson.
We had an excellent overtime goal line stand against NC State. When State was ranked number 1 in the country. Very realistic.
Absolutely.
Excuse me, that's what I'm hanging my hat on right now. Have you gone through the coaching carousel on this game?
Not yet. I'm intrigued.
You have to act fast. I thought because they do it in realistic time, like as the bowls are going on, jobs are open.
Okay.
And if you don't, like, there is a week where they show you what is being offered to you. And if you don't take a job that week, you're not going to get other offers.
Now,
Jobs come open.
Is it something like in 14 where you have to commit to the carousel, or is it like you can still keep your job if you don't like options?
Yeah. If you don't like the options, you stay with your job.
Okay, because in 14, you're like, I'm committed to the carousel. I have to take another job. I can't go back to the one that I have.
Really?
From what I remember.
I don't remember that. I remember going through carousels and passing on job offers.
Okay, maybe I'm thinking about a different version of the game, but I'm intrigued between that, and I haven't gotten to the end of a season in general anyway.
Gotcha.
Also, how the portal works out too.
Yeah. The portal is interesting. The portal is not that different from recruiting, but all of a sudden you have to decide which high school guys are you knocking off to make room for portal guys on your targets list.
That's a good point. What do you spend most of your recruiting points on?
So they cap it on how much you can spend per guy.
Okay.
But if I, being at a G5 program right now, if I have a 4-star that shows any amount of interest, we are sending the house every week.
You have to, right?
Right.
Oh, okay. Sweet. Yeah, I'm coming along with it. I kept having to restart games for the first couple of days because I just was not used to how this game played, and I was terrible at it. But after a few days, I've almost given up on kicking. I think I'm just going to keep simming kicks now because I can't nail anything more than 30 yards.
Yeah, if it's clear that I'm going to kick a field goal, I will run a play with just getting my quarterback to the middle of the field.
Right.
Because I definitely cannot angle.
But even then, the meter is just it's so hard to nail right. Like,
have you played the Hurricane Kick mini game?
No, I've not.
So apparently there's a mini game where you are kicking against 80-mile-per-hour winds.
Oh, love that.
Yeah.
I'll have to check that out. Because, like, kicking shouldn't be easy, but it shouldn't be impossible either.
Well, I like the idea behind this. I heard an interview with the creator where they were like, they wanted to simulate the college kicker experience. But
Okay.
if you have a kicker that's rated like a 90, he should be reliable like a 90.
Yeah, like his meter shouldn't move as fast or something like
Right.
that. Like, yeah, if you're a 67 overall, sure, like make that thing go crazy. But
Yeah.
I think there could be some adjusting.
What kind of coach are you?
I'm a motivator.
That's right. Build these young men up.
That's right. 5-star champions of life, 5-star hearts, whatever.
Two o'clock, third hour of the halftime show. Tyler and Dimitri along with you here on this Monday. It is time for what's trending at 2, and well, nothing bigger trending in the sports world right now than what is happening at the Olympics. As we talked about a few minutes ago, the women's volleyball team for the U.S. did fall to China. They did storm a comeback, but not able to beat China there. I believe I'm watching men's archery right now on the USA Network. I have to the schedule every day. There's a guy on Twitter. I forget who it is. He puts out the schedule every day of literally every single event that is happening.
Yeah.
It's a lot to keep up with.
So I am watching on Peacock. So I'm using that Gold Zone feature where they just take you to what the biggest thing happening right now is.
Right.
And apparently right now the U.S. men's gymnastics team is on the floor, and we've got some weird looking dudes on this team. Like some dudes that are obviously jacked because they're gymnasts, but also just look like huge nerds, man. Like I feel like I could beat them up, but in real life, I know, like, God, there's no way. What is your overall?
Probably insane.
Oh, absolutely. I'm positive it is, isn't it? It's just the men that do the rings, right?
I think so. I don't think I've seen any women doing that.
That's an insane. That takes an insane amount of strength to just hang from them, let alone do tricks on them.
Right.
What is your, let's call it your Olympic fetish, right? That thing that you don't pay attention to most days of your life, but once every 4 years, man, you're an expert at it.
I weirdly enjoy the cycling stuff.
Okay.
I was watching, and I forget the exact name of it, with the off-road cycling that was yesterday.
Oh, the mountain biking, right?
Mountain biking. That's what it is. Mountain biking. When they do like the long, I guess it's just cycling. I guess the way you call it, like what the Tour de France is essentially. I don't know why I enjoy that as much as I do. Maybe it's just the race fan in me that enjoys watching.
I was just about to say this because I was watching a little bit of mountain biking this morning, and it dawned on me how much NASCAR is in this thing, because there's a pit stop in the middle of it. You can lose position. You got a draft off. I totally can see cycling being your thing.
The coolest one is the indoor where they're on the bank track.
Yeah. Is that called a melodrome or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. But like they're all, and I mean, it's insanely fast.
Yeah.
And like they're on, everything's banked, and like they're all in like a line, and they're slingshotting past each other. That's actually pretty cool.
Yeah. You started this segment by mentioning that the women's volleyball team fell in a really exciting match against China. I don't know if it's from growing up in a family where, like, my dad is Greek, right? Volleyball is one of the big sports in Greece. My dad liked volleyball. It doesn't mean in the 80s and 90s it was available on TV down in Alabama. It's just I was familiar with it. All of my female cousins played volleyball in high school. So whether it's the arena sport or the beach, I really love volleyball every 4 years in the Olympics. And if you have not seen, and I don't know how well this is going to translate in audio form only, but last night, Sarah Hughes and Kelly Cheng, they are probably our best women's beach volleyball team. The ones that if anybody is going to win the gold from the U.S., it is going to be these two. They had a wild match point against the Czech Republic. I'm going to play this clip. It's a little over 30 seconds, but just listen for how many times the ball is hit and played from one side to the other in 30 seconds.
Hermanova dug up. Hughes. Long run. Kelly Chang. Not yet. Hughes floating. Little chipper. Hermanova. Poking. It's over. The United States wins the match.
I mean, just wild. And look, the bikinis don't hurt, but I promise you, Tyler, it is not the only thing I like about beach volleyball at the Olympics.
I think I counted 17 back and forths, that clip. So when he said it's over, that was at second 28. So about 17 back and forths between 28 seconds.
And I can't explain what it is that is different about volleyball than like tennis, particularly beach volleyball, where like tennis, it's doubles, right? I can't explain to you why it is I can't get into tennis but really enjoy volleyball. I think part of it is also knowing the challenge of them playing on sand is kind of cool too.
Yeah, definitely so. And it's crazy. You and I were talking about this earlier. The difference in the game on sand as opposed to, in a gym like, we're kind of used to more traditionally here in America. And obviously the skill sets, I'm sure, translate over. But I can only imagine what the process of being one or the other, or at what point you have to make that decision of, hey, I'm going to be a beach volleyball player or a traditional, indoor volleyball player.
So I was reading about this. It is pretty common for the folks that age out of the indoor team to then make a go of it on the beach, because there is so much more that is about you and not you having to fit into a system. Do you remember Chase Budinger?
The name sounds familiar.
He played basketball at Arizona. He was a second-round draft pick in the NBA, but he hung around for a while. He's apparently a member of the U.S. men's beach volleyball team this year. Man, it's interesting. Obviously, like a lot of people, next week, once the track and field starts, is when I'll really be locked in. But did you know that Paris is like double booking a lot of these venues? So if you have turned on like on day one and saw like, holy crap, we're already playing for the bronze medal in men's rugby, it's because they're using the same stadium where they're going to be doing the track and field events, and they need time not only to finish rugby, but then repair the field for the events that are part of track and field.
That's what I was wondering watching volleyball a little bit earlier. I'm like, is that the same gym the men's basketball team was playing in yesterday, or is that a different venue?
It is a different venue. I cannot remember where it is that the volleyball is being played. I know the men's basketball is actually being played in Lille, not Paris.
Oh, okay.
So that it has its own venue. And maybe that's where the women are playing too. The women's basketball will get underway in just about an hour from now. And obviously with the local connection, we'll all be rooting for Asia Wilson. We will probably be watching, because I believe Dawn Staley is going to be part of the broadcast. But in the lead up to all of that, Tyler, I mentioned it earlier. Have you watched any Olympic rugby?
Yes, I have.
So the U.S. men did terrible. And it, of course, makes sense because we don't play a lot of rugby in this country. I think the men are over, right? France won the gold and Fiji won the silver, I think.
That sounds correct.
Okay. The women. If you have not heard the name Ilona Maher is, she's big. I mean, when I say big, I mean she is tall, she is muscular, she looks like she should be playing rugby, and she runs like Marshawn Lynch.
A first carry for Ilona Maher. Look at her go, the power, the strength of Ilona Maher. And plenty of pace as well. Burlington, Vermont, Paris, France.
This big New England girl who, if you've not seen her social media, she's actually really, really funny too. But she sounds like she sounds like a cast member of Family Guy when she opens her mouth.
Yeah, I've seen some of her stuff. Very, very entertaining, but also very bruising. It seems to be. Is it a pitch? Am I saying that right? The pitch.
I think, I don't know, that clip of her, like, it looks like, and I think they're playing Japan. The stiff arm she throws looks like she murders this poor girl that's tried to tackle.
It's kind of funny with how much we like brutality and things like that in America. You would think rugby would be a more popular sport because, I mean, it's football without the helmets, and it's football for the people that complain about how safe football has become.
It's true. I mean, what's funny is my son and I were watching it, and it's like all of the backwards laterals. I get it. Like, it's kind of boring, and then someone gets tackled, and it's not
Sure.
just, hey, the play's over, start again. There's all this fighting for the ball, and it feels like nothing happens for a while. But when somebody gets a breakaway run, man, like, get those guys pads into the SEC immediately.
Yeah, it's and I know the game had various names depending on where you grew up, but it's like the game you played as a kid with the football where just a bunch of people were trying to fight over the ball and there was no real like scoring to it. It's just whoever had the ball at the end
Yeah.
won or whoever could get away from everybody. Like that's kind of what it reminds me of.
That's right. For the sake of our jobs, let's not speculate on what that game was called in various parts of the country. But yeah, man,
Let's go in general with it.
yeah, no, that's definitely the way to do it. I'm not sure what's going on because I have the volume off, but I think our men's gymnastics team has just won a gold medal. They are holding up the flag and crying. That's usually a
Okay.
good sign.
That's probably a good
Um,
sign. I think I'm watching women's crew now.
Sure.
They don't have the scoreboard up, so I don't know who just won, but somebody is that Switzerland? Yeah, Switzerland. Just won.
A
See if
medal?
America placed in this. They did not.
Mm. It's weird coming into these games. Like, Simone Biles is a star. Obviously some of those folks that are stars in sports that are bigger than just the Olympics. Like, think about our flag bearers were Coco Gauff and LeBron James. Gold
Right.
medals in these games are going to be way down the list of career accomplishments, right? But they
Sure.
are still stars nonetheless. One of the folks that was a star that we were all supposed to be hanging on and watching for was Katie Ledecky. And I have never had less interest in Olympic swimming than I do this year. And I don't know, Tyler, if it's as simple as we all got invested in Michael Phelps and he's gone now.
Maybe so. And there's a new guy emerging out of France, Leon Marchand, that won the gold last night. That it's kind of
Yeah.
being billed as the next Michael Phelps, and you very much see a lot of those characteristics. And I don't know what the fixation on people dominating in swimming is, but maybe he's kind of the next one. But it does kind of seem like ever since Phelps got out of the pool, that the interest in swimming, I guess, because maybe America wasn't as dominant anymore, at least in the men's portion, has died a little bit.
Yeah. It appears that the U.S. won a bronze in men's team gymnastics is what we were just celebrating there. So good for the men. We are
you and I have so.
Yeah, we're number 3. We're number 3. Let's keep the Olympic conversation going. Mitchell Northam writes for the Win blog with USA Today. He's been doing a lot of Olympics coverage. He regularly covers women's college basketball, so we can talk to him a bit about Asia and the women's team getting ready to tip off coming up in a little less than an hour. Mitchell Northam joins us next. That's Tyler Head. I'm Dimitri Ravanis, and you are listening to 107.5 The Game and the Game Sports Network.
Start the week of July 29th. Call Charwood at 803-755-2000 to reserve your foursome. One lucky player will win a pair of season tickets to all Gamecocks home football games.
The Games 2024 Summer Golf Classic is August 23rd at Charwood. Call 803-755-2000 to reserve your foursome.
107.5 The Game, broadcasting live from the Herndon Chevrolet Studios.
Take up to $20K off new Silverados.
Stop by or shop online today and see why Herndon Chevrolet makes you smile. Together, let's drive.
This football season, in every football season, come to campus and catch a game. Whatever the game, whoever you're with, just catch a game. Find your tickets online at GamecocksOnline.com.
This year, Roy and Dana Finley are shaking things up at AAA Heating and Air. For the next 12 months, they're telling their customers no. Get a new system purchase with no payments and no interest for a whole year. You heard that right. Purchase a brand new system in 2024 and get no payments and no interest until 2025. Do what I did. Call AAA Heating and Air today for your free estimate. 803-677-15. Go Gunner sent you.
ready to spot because Herndon Chevrolet, your hometown Chevy dealer, is offering an amazing deal. Right now, get a whopping $20,000 off new Silverados. Yes, 20 grand off. Don't wait. Head over to HerndonChevy.com today and drive home in the truck of your dreams. Chevy, together let's drive. Herndon Chevy. Call 803-510-5447 for complete details.
Is your crawl space damp or musty? Water in your crawl space can cause wood to rot from inside your home. Canty Foundation Specialist specializes in crawl space repair. Call us today.
Now, who is Peyton Lewis?
Oh, that is my wife.
Oh, very good. She,
yes.
First of all, I did not realize that you are Disney adults. And secondly, she has just followed me on Twitter.
Oh, yes.
Not a lender and does not make credit decisions. Must be 18 years old.
She, well, she's more the Disney adult than I am.
Sure. Don't fight it. Lean in.
I'm along for the ride. She is sitting in a meeting in Charleston for her new job at DOT, listening to them talk about roads.
Sure. I would assume the DOT is in favor of them.
I would assume so. I will give you the full update later.
Please, thank you. What an upset if it turns out they've decided to do away with roads.
I know. Be shocking, right?
I got bills to pay and I just got approved.
If you have bills to pay, get the cash you need by going to lendingstore.com. Don't wait. Go to lendingstore.com. That's lendingstore.com.
Since 1963, Takeuchi has been a pioneer in the compact construction industry. He developed the world's first compact excavator in 1971 and the world's first compact...
Hey, this is Tyler at 107.5 The Game. Is this Mitchell? Hey, Mitchell. Thanks for taking some time today. You good to join me and Dimitri? All right, cool. I'm going to put you on hold. Be on just a second, okay? All right, thanks.
Powered by Integrated Media, The Game TV. Sponsored by Shepherd's Glass, a true reflection of quality. The Game TV. Sponsored by Shepherd's Glass.
If your supply chain demands a flexible workforce, hire with Express Employment Professionals. With contract and full-time workers from Express Employment, you get the staff you need and manage contingent labor costs. Learn more at expresspros.com. That's expresspros.com.
Hit us up on the Firehouse Subs text line, 803-404-6100. Your home of the Gamecocks in Columbia, 107.5 The Game. Also heard on 100.3 The Game in Myrtle Beach and 100.5 The Game in Florence.
Give me the point when we come in, because I'm going to start by talking about a specific event before we bring Mitchell in.
Okay.
The halftime show sponsored by... 107.5 The Game. I'm Dimitri Ravanis. He is Tyler Head, talking Olympics here on the station. Tyler, I'm going to make a radical proposal for the Olympics going forward, because when you hear the two words Olympic surfing put together, you would think this is an awesome competition, right?
Sure, why not?
I've seen more unusable waves than actual surfing in this competition. I am going to score points with your wife here by suggesting we move all future Olympic surfing competitions to Typhoon Lagoon in Disney World, where we know the waves are tailor-made for surfing.
I was going to say, I think you get some consistency there, and they are in Tahiti, which last I checked was not really that close to France, but I can't imagine the surfing in France is all that great this time of year.
9,700 miles away from the host city, the furthest Olympic venue away from the host city that we've ever seen before. Mitchell Northam from the For the Win blog, part of the USA Today network, is following the Olympics just like we are. Mitchell, what do you say? Disney World permanent Olympic surfing host?
If we're going to do something in Disney World, I feel like we got to figure out how to make something with Splash Mountain in
to an Olympic sport. I don't know if that's the surfers going down there or what, but we got to figure something out with that. And yeah, I mean, the most eventful thing out of surfing Olympics was the guy who lost his drawers.
Right. I'm watching it right now, and I have just for the first time over 3 days of watching Olympic surfing seen 2 waves in a row being ridden. Most of it is just people floating over the top and moving on. Mitchell, in addition to covering the Olympics with For the Win, is also covering women's basketball for them. We obviously, with Asia Wilson being on the team and women's basketball being what it is here in South Carolina, have an interest in that team. And I think, Mitchell, as much as people harp on what the men's team's expectations are every year or every Olympics, weirdly, it has flown under the radar how long it has been since we have even lost a game, let alone a medal in women's basketball.
Yeah, I was not yet a year old the last time that the U.S. Olympics women's basketball team lost a game. That was 1992 in Barcelona. Ever since then, it's been all W's, and that should continue this year, despite all the talk about, the fake outrage of Caitlin Clark not being on the squad and stuff. This is still a top to bottom, super stacked squad that's led by Asia Wilson and Brianna Stewart. There's no other squad in the Olympics that's filled with top to bottom WNBA players. They should dominate. They should win. Really, no questions asked. It would be a massive disappointment if they did not.
Is part of this, is it about where the rest of the world is versus the United States? Because I hear people get so outraged whenever someone compares this year's men's team and says this might be the most talented since the Dream Team, and people get all outraged and forget that the rest of the world has caught up when it comes to men's basketball. Has that just not happened with women?
Yeah, not quite yet. I mean, I think part of the reason, is, the NBA has been around so much longer than the WNBA, and the rosters are bigger, and there's 30 teams instead of 12, so there's less chances for, some of these foreign players to come over here and play in the WNBA, which is the best league in the world. Like Belgium, their best player is Emma Mieseman, who was the WNBA Finals MVP in 2019, but hasn't played in the W since 2022 because just really couldn't find her way onto a roster. So there's definitely some of that. I think we're seeing that in women's soccer now too, right? Where the rest of the world is starting to catch up. I don't think that's quite happened yet in women's basketball. It might be a couple more Olympic cycles really before that takes place, but you are seeing more of an influx of international players in the college game too. I mean, a really great player that's coming to the SEC this year at Kentucky is going to be Georgia Amore, who didn't make Australia's squad, but she was in the mix and will probably be on future teams. One of Canada's best players plays at Gonzaga. So we're starting to see some of that, but we're not quite there the way we are with men's basketball and women's soccer.
Mitchell, to make a little local connection here, Dawn Staley's been a part of the Olympic coverage so far, and she was on yesterday with Mike Tirico and did, talk a little bit about Caitlin Clark's being omitted from the women's Olympic team. What did you make of those comments that she had to say yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, she's probably right. I think my, when the Caitlin Clark decision and the U.S. women's national team roster was first announced, I wrote a column at For the Win that was basically like, we have to decide what Team USA women's basketball is supposed to be. If it's supposed to be about growing the game and, amplifying women's basketball as this great product, then yeah, Caitlin Clark probably deserved to be on that team just because of the attention and hype that she generates. If USA is supposed to be about simply dominating and winning every single game by, no matter what the score is, as many points as possible, then, I'm not 100% sure Caitlin Clark should have been on the team. But the thing is, neither should Diana Taurasi, who's 42 years old, and she's on this team. If we wanted to take simply the most talented top-to-bottom roster over there, we should have taken Arike Ogunbowale instead of Diana Taurasi. I would have taken Caitlin Clark over Diana Taurasi. All respect to her, but she's 42 years old and she's not one of the best 12 American players anymore in the WNBA. Caitlin Clark is on her way there. So that was really the problem with the whole decision is like Team USA told us that it was about winning and not really about growing the game. But then they did another thing when they put this team together.
We are talking to Mitchell Northam in addition to covering women's basketball at For the Win. He is also keeping an eye on the Olympics. I made the point earlier in the show, Mitchell, that when it comes to men's basketball, soccer, tennis, golf, any of these things where the Olympics are not the peak of competition, I would be fine with them leaving the event altogether. As much as I like Olympic basketball, I still would be fine with it leaving the event altogether. I do wonder if that would be the case with women's basketball, because you mentioned the WNBA is still so new. So many of those women are going and playing in international leagues during the offseason. I wonder if there is a different level of appeal of being a part of Team USA for the women's stars than there are for the men.
Yeah, I think certainly. I think it's something definitely on the women's side that, every player really wants to be a part of. It's kind of, the peak of the sport, really. I mean, it really says you are one of the best 12 American players in the WNBA. And I think that's why Diana Taurasi, mention her again, is somebody who wants to be on this team every year. It is a point of pride. She's going to go for her 6th straight gold medal, which is just insane to think about.
Well, let me ask it to you this way. Is that something that with Diana Taurasi we use as evidence of her greatness? Whereas, like Carmelo Anthony has 3 gold medals as the all-time, or was until yesterday, the all-time leading scorer for men in the Olympics. And still the first line of his career retrospective is didn't win a championship in the NBA. Is it different for the women's players?
That's interesting. I think it might be, maybe at this point, just because of the dominance associated with Team USA women's basketball. And I don't think we think about it necessarily like before their WNBA accomplishments like we do on the men's side. But I think maybe it does mean a little bit more. Yeah, that's an interesting point. I also wonder if there's maybe a way to kind of generate more competitiveness and interest in, women's basketball, the Olympics, by kind of treating it how they do with men's soccer, where they make it sort of U23. So all the players are under 23 years old, except for kind of a handful of guys. Maybe you even the playing field that way a little bit, and get some of these other countries a little bit more competitive. I wonder if maybe that's a solution, but yeah, the big storyline with women's basketball is Team USA is supposed to win it all. And if they don't, that is certainly going to shake things up.
Mitchell, last one for you here for your viewing guide for the rest of the day. What should we be looking out for, paying attention to?
Man, the rest of the day, I know that this might not be happening today. I think we've already gotten some women's rugby today. I don't know how many more games the U.S. women's rugby team has to play, but they're much watched going forward because of Iona Mayer, who, I'm not sure what her eligibility is. And, if anybody, maybe Dawn Staley can kind of do some recruiting for the Gamecocks over there. I don't know if you guys need a running back, but certainly, I mean, she kind of gave off some Willis McGahee, Najee Harris kind of vibes with not only the stiff arm, but then the breakaway speed.
Listen, I've been saying, as we've talked about her today, I've been saying it's hard to watch her and not hear the Marshawn Lynch run through an MFer's face quote in your head as you're watching her play. She's amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah, just pure beast mode. I would love to see her, let's get her in an SEC game. Let's figure something out. She played club rugby at Quinnipiac. We need to call up the NCAA and see what her eligibility is going forward. I'm still keeping an eye on field hockey. Our American team over there, our women's team has not done great so far without Erin Matson, which is to be expected because she's like the Michael Jordan of field hockey, and for some reason we decided to leave her home. Also, got to keep an eye on beach volleyball and see how Chase Buttons does going forward.
Yeah, very good. He is Mitchell Northam. You can read his stuff at For the Win, part of the USA Today Network. Mitchell, thanks so much for taking the time today, man.
All right, thanks for having me. You guys have fun.
Yep. This is why I wanted to have him on, Tyler, is I don't think people realize the level of dominance of U.S. women's basketball. Again, he said it, have not lost a game since Barcelona 92.
That's
A
insane.
game, not a medal, a game. That's bananas.
Yeah, no, that's insane. Certainly hope that dominance continues to roll on, and obviously a lot of representation with the local connection here in South Carolina as well. We'll jump back into the football conversation coming up next as the halftime show rolls along. He is Dimitri Ravenos. I'm Tyler Head on your Monday here on the game. I have to hit the greatest day in the history of the world when we come back.
All right, no problem.
Very briefly, but I got a Panthers connection for you.
Oh, very good.
All right.
Maxed out cards, Red's due, bills are piling up. We just need some extra cash to help us get by for a few weeks.
We should do what my brother did. He went to billshappen.com and got $3,000 the next day.
With our bad credit, I don't think so.
Billshappen.com is different. They are one of the largest personal loan networks. They can help people with all credit types get up to $5,000.
I'm sure there's a lot of paperwork.
Nope, my brother said it was easy. He did it right from his phone.
If you have a regular source of income, you can be approved for a loan for up to $5,000 in minutes, and your cash can hit your bank account the next day. Billshappen.com's lenders have millions of dollars to lend, regardless of your credit history.
Great news! I went to billshappen.com and we will have our money as soon as tomorrow.
Wow, that is fast.
If you need extra cash, go to billshappen.com. That's billshappen.com. Billshappen.com.
It's the Love Chevrolet countdown to Gamecock football.
33 days to kickoff.
No games, no add-ons, no surprises. No wonder so many people buy with confidence at Love Chevy, home of $1,000 low price guarantee.
No. He's out on the air. Me and Dimitri.
All right. You heard about the problem with the console, right?
No, what happened?
Well, that's why that rack is out.
Okay.
It's locked up twice today.
Okay.
And we've had to power cycle the engine to get it to come back, the console. And so I have it out because I think it may be heat related.
Okay.
So it's doing that, and I want to keep this down to 70 if possible.
Okay.
And if you don't need the door shut, if you don't need it shut, I prefer it be open. So
Okay. Yeah, you can leave it open. That's fine.
Well, no, if you're talking, I want it shut.
Okay.
But,
Yeah.
But if they're just going to be board opping later, then
Okay. Yeah.
Elijah's on there, too.
When Elijah's done, he can leave it open at the end of the day.
But that's the whole shebang.
All right. Yep. Yeah, we went dead for like 4 minutes this morning. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That's fun.
Did you see this story about a local Mercedes dealer giving Lenora Sellers a custom built black Benz?
No, I did not. I know. So Spencer had a G-Wagon when he was here. I don't know if that's the same place. I imagine it might be.
Might be. You don't. This video link in the news story, you don't get a good look at the car, so I can't even tell you like, is this super impressive or not?
Interesting. What kind of car did you say it was?
It is a Benz Coupe.
Benz Coupe.
It's from Dick Dyer.
Okay.
Who I think is the one that did the G-Wagon last year, right?
I think so.
Lexington's best for 15 years straight.
So call Absolute Glass at 951-7200.
Or find us online.
Pretty nice looking car. I mean, just looking up on Google.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Liquor store is not a lender and does not make credit decisions. Must be 18 years old. Not available.
What was the dealership in Alabama that gave out all the Challengers all those years?
Oh, I can't remember, but it might have just been something like Hoover or Toyota of Hoover or something like that, or Dodge of Hoover, something like that.
Yeah.
And I suppose lendingstore.com is helping you pay your rent too.
They were banking on those guys being first rounders, or at least making it to the pros, I guess.
Yep, for sure. Boy, I wonder what happens to this car if he gets benched.
Let's hope we don't have to find out.
I was about to say, I don't anticipate him getting benched. It's just
he's got to hand the keys to Robbie Ashford.
That's
Oh, that is fast. I got bills to pay and I just got approved.
I think they have confidence he'll be the starter.
Yeah.
Don't wait. Go to
I think you probably don't sign Ashford if you don't have confidence someone else is going to be the starter, right?
Yeah, probably not. They just needed somebody with a similar skill set.
Right.
In case of emergency.
And welcome back in. Halftime show. Tyler and Dimitri along with you here on the game on your Monday. Want to remind you once again that the greatest moments in Gamecock history since the year 2000 is up now on our Twitter page. Go to 1075.com, vote for, or excuse me, the 1075 The Game Twitter page and vote for your favorite Gamecock moment since 2000. Today, tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday, we'll take those 4 winners and have another poll that will run next week, and then we'll have the ultimate winner revealed on August the 12th, all sponsored by our friends over at Columbia Craft on Green Street down in the Vista. It is indeed time for the greatest day in the history of the world, and given the fact that Dimitri is joining us today, I can't think of a better time to use this one than this day in 1995. The NFL said, you know what, for the Hall of Fame game, let's just take the 2 new teams, smash them together, and let them play an exhibition as the Carolina Panthers beat the Jacksonville Jaguars 20-14 in their official debut in the Hall of Fame game.
Very good. I did not realize that this was the anniversary of the first ever, I guess you have to call it the first ever Panthers football game, right? Even though
it
it's a
doesn't count,
preseason game.
yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's the first time you see them in full regalia. Speaking of that game, did you see that the Jaguars are going to be breaking out those original uniforms a few times this upcoming season?
I did see that. I'm very much in favor of that. I hated when they went to that two-tone ridiculousness a couple years ago. I think there's nothing wrong with just the straight black with the Jaguar on it.
Do you know that that classic straight black helmet with the Jaguar on it was not their first choice for a logo for that team?
It typically doesn't go that way. It's typically like the 5th or 6th option. Like the if you look back in the history of team helmet designs, there's usually some pretty bad first choices.
So initially, and in fact, I think their first choice was actually better than what we got. But the first choice was a jumping, like a pouncing Jaguar. And the league determined that it looked so close to the logo for the car company Jaguar that they were likely to get sued. So if you ever see old Jaguars jerseys, you will see that version on the shoulder. But originally, the Jaguars were supposed to have a silver helmet with that leaping Jaguar on it.
Didn't the Panthers have an alternative helmet design before they decided on the silverish, well, I don't know, whatever you call that color of the helmet now?
Ooh, they may have. I would have to look that up just because I don't remember. The old Jaguar, it was very memorable. That's why I know that one for sure. But I'll look that up and I'll have that answer for you when we speak on Wednesday.
Yeah, I feel like they may have had something different. Regardless, I think the Panthers have one of the cleaner looking uniforms in the NFL. They haven't really messed with a whole lot over the years, and have they kind of switched up color schemes and stuff like that in terms of like the all black or the baby blue. But for the most part, they've kept it pretty close to the original.
I think they call that shade. I think the team named it Process Blue, if I remember right.
Okay. Right.
And it was to differentiate from the original blue that they used. I've been an advocate for the last few years of I want to see a major uniform overhaul for the team. And it's not that I have a problem. It's just aside from darkening the shade of blue, the Panthers have looked pretty much the same since they launched.
Right. And there's something to be said about consistency. I mean, like, the Packers have looked the same forever. The Steelers, for the most part, have looked the same forever. But I guess when you are a newer organization, you don't have to cling to the guns of looking the same. And in fact, I wish the Falcons hadn't changed to their new uniforms because I think they look god awful.
Yeah, I think that, the funny thing is that with the NFC South, I think the Buccaneers have what I would call a classic of the newer logo uniform combos when they switched back to the Super Bowl era ones.
I want to know the whole story because I feel like Tom Brady looked at those
Had to
ridiculous
have.
Arena League uniforms and said, "If you want me, I'm not wearing those."
It was almost like it was like a declaration that the Jameis years are over when they switched out of the ones that looked like an alarm clock. But I would argue that the Saints, even though I really don't like the Saints, have one of the best uniforms in the league, period.
Yeah, it's very clean. Now I know because they have, much like the Panthers, they have the black alternative helmet now. I did enjoy when they used to do the throwbacks and they had the actual original, like, I don't know what shade to describe it as, the other type of gold
Yeah.
helmet that they used to use, like in the Archie Manning days.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a really cool logo that looks like it belongs in the town. I think that the NFL we're so few and far between of those logos that outside of New Orleans and Chicago, I'm not saying they could all be interchangeable because obviously Green Bay's logo is Green Bay's logo, etc. Maybe I would put Pittsburgh in there. Not only are they classic logos, they look like they belong in the city they represent.
Yeah, absolutely. And, with teams like that, they have a name that ties into what their city is, which makes a lot
Right.
of sense as opposed to just taking a random animal or bird or something like that and saying,
Like
okay, that's your team name
like
now.
say a panther, perhaps.
Like say a what was on the docket of the options they had besides Panther? I don't know if I've ever investigated that.
I don't remember because you would have been really young when the league expanded in 94, right?
I was not born then.
Okay. All
I was
right.
born
So
in
then
96.
you wouldn't remember this. We knew what the teams' names were going to be before we knew what cities were getting the team. So
Oh,
it was
okay.
the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Carolina Panthers. I know one of them was the Memphis Hound Dogs.
Okay.
There was I believe it was the St. Louis Bombers
All right.
was one of the teams. And Baltimore had a team, and I can't remember what it was, but before the process began, everyone assumed Charlotte was getting a team.
Okay.
And I think everyone assumed St. Louis was getting a team. Jacksonville really came out of left field in that process.
Okay. I'm trying to think. I mean, that's top 100 media market. That's, I
It
guess, not
is.
surprising.
And I believe I cannot remember which NFL team it was. Man, it may have been the St. Louis before the Cardinals moved to Arizona. I believe Jacksonville made a really strong push to get them when it became clear they were leaving St. Louis. So the town had a history of dealing with the NFL before and definitely knew what it was the NFL was looking for in that regard.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, you can celebrate the 29th anniversary
Yeah.
of the Panthers. I guess, well, I hope they have a good enough team to where celebrating 30 years can be actually worth something next year.
I think they are going to be a lot better this year. On our Panthers podcast, this team is killing us. Lauren warns me over and over again not to say it can't be worse than next year or than last year. But I think that it's not just about talent. It's about hiring a competent coaching staff. I would be hard pressed to believe that things are going to be as bad this year as they were last year. And we'll work towards maybe the 30th anniversary season is one that warrants the celebrations that you're going to see.
Maybe so. You got to give a coach enough time to actually last the season, which hopefully Dave Canales can, as opposed to Frank Wright, who, by the way, was the starting quarterback of that team back in 1995.
That's right. That's right. I think that the most appropriate thing the team could do to celebrate the 30th anniversary is, for the love of God, retire Cam's jersey. Like it's shocking it hasn't already been done. The only MVP in team history.
That is actually surprising that they've not done something like that. But this one, maybe they're waiting for his career to actually officially end before doing that.
I don't know. I know that there was a very different relationship between Cam and Jerry Richardson versus Cam and Dave Tepper. Maybe that has something to do with it. I'm not sure, but I think it is. That would be the ultimate gift to fans. I truly believe that. if they would do that for the 30th anniversary season.
Might be enough to incentivize them to actually show up to the first game.
There you go. I don't know if you saw this list that came out over the weekend, Tyler. Blake Topmeyer, who covers the SEC for newspapers all over the country, for the Gannett newspapers, said that he's gotten tired of safe, quote-unquote, bold predictions for the SEC. So he has 8 actual bold predictions. I will tell you what they are coming up next. That's Tyler Head. I'm Demetri Ravanas. This is the halftime show on 107.5 The Game.
All right. What would you say the best segment we've done today is?
Well, Paul has name recognition.
You know what? That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I would say, but I would say the best one was the first break of the 1 o'clock hour, where we're talking about Dowell and the new pieces on offense.
No, the Paul thing that makes perfect sense. We have hour between 6 and 7 where we just play the best clips from each show.
Oh, very cool.
So usually Dave does that, but he's on vacation this week. So
sure. Now, where does Dave vacation?
That we don't ask those questions. What Dave does when he leaves the studio here is that's up to Dave. We ask no questions.
Honest question, because not just because I think this is where Dave would be, but honestly, all the times I've been there, I don't think I have ever seen a sign. What is strip club culture in Columbia? Are there any?
There is one called Platinum West out by, trying to describe it. It's kind of like an industrial district, I guess.
Okay.
I don't know. It's not in the most it's not like in downtown area. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's kind of off to the side. That is the only one to my knowledge that is out here. Maybe other people know of others or underground ones. I don't know, but that's the only one I've seen.
Obviously, look, coming from rock and sports, I have done my share of advertising for strip clubs in my career, but I have always been surprised that I'm just not overwhelmed with ads for them in South Carolina.
There is if you leave Williams-Brice Stadium and go down Bluff Road like you're going towards 77, there is a billboard for Platinum.
Okay.
That is the only one that I'm aware of. Maybe there's a couple more, but it's the only one that I've seen.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anything. It's not like they run commercials on TV or anything, but that was when I was first made aware of it. And then just driving on that end of town, going somewhere else, I passed it and I was like, oh, there it is.
Yeah. There was one here in Cary, which is a suburb of Raleigh, that it was called Pure Gold. And when I first moved to town, there was a fire at Pure Gold, and it had to shut down. And it has since reopened as half Pure Gold and half a gas station.
Oh. I mean, you get everything you need all in one stop.
For sure.
There was one in Athens called Toppers, just right in the middle of downtown. It was one of those blink and you miss it because it's literally just a door. And I mean, no windows and stuff like that, but it's just this door in this side of a building on I forget what street it's on, and they got, the bouncer standing out front, and it's pretty happening place.
One of my best friends is from Orlando originally, so we went down there for his wedding and bachelor party and everything. And I did not realize this, but Disney and Universal have basically tailored the laws to, if you want to go to a gentleman's club, you have to go to Tampa. You're not going to find them in whatever county it is that Orlando is in.
Oh, really? Well,
or at least you're not going to find ones where you see anything of note.
I guess the family aspect in Disney, maybe.
I guess
Tampa
it's
on that.
It's also a way to make sure Dad does not spend the money that should be spent at Disney anywhere else on that vacation.
I guess so.
Well, welcome back in. Halftime show. Tyler Head, Dimitri Ravanos, along with you for a couple more minutes before turning things over to Jay and Elijah for today's edition of the post-game show. As Dimitri just kind of mentioned there right before the break, there is this list from Blake Toppenmeyer of predictions that probably won't happen, but totally could in regards to the SEC. And I'm kind of with you. The whole bold predictions thing has kind of gotten old to where,
Yeah.
people say something along the lines of, "Ooh, Tennessee might make the college football playoff." Like, is that really that crazy of a stretch? Not necessarily. Like, give me something with a lot of juice behind it.
Yeah, so Blake Topmeyer begins this column by basically listing the 4 quote unquote bold takes in college football he's already bored with. And that is that Georgia and Texas will play in the SEC championship game. Ole Miss makes the inaugural 12-team playoff. Ohio State is the top national championship contender outside the SEC. And the Big 12 and ACC will each produce only one qualifier. I do want to run through his 8, what he calls actually bold predictions in the SEC real fast so that we can just pick the ones we really want to dive in on while we have some time here, Tyler.
Okay. All right.
All right. So here they are. Here are the 8 in his order that he says could happen. Number 1, A&M knocks Texas out of the playoff picture. Number 2, Florida actually does pretty well against that super tough schedule. Number 3, only one SEC team changes coaches in the offseason. Number 4, Jackson Arnold has a better first season as a starter than Nico Iamaleava. Number 5, Missouri falls back to the pack. Number 6, Kalen DeBoer wins SEC Coach of the Year. Number 7, this is the best season in Brian Kelly's tenure at LSU. And number 8, Vanderbilt strings together 3 wins this season. Are there any that strike you as not that particularly bold?
Honestly, Kalen DeBoer winning SEC Coach of the Year, because with how talented that team is, there's a good chance they're probably going to be able to make the playoff. Maybe not as a top seed, but maybe as one of the back end seeds. Maybe they have to go on the road, but just
could you
doing
see
that.
Yeah, could you see that's exactly what I was about to ask. Could you see voters being biased who just not being Nick Saban?
1,000%. Oh, he was able to keep this amazing Ferrari from crashing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if that necessarily warrants Coach of the Year, but sure.
Missouri falling back to the pack. That does not seem very bold to me. I think that Missouri has a great offense, but I am struggling to figure out who they are going to stop this season. They've got a not very good or not very hard schedule, so maybe they could still come out of here with 10 or 11 wins, but I just don't think Missouri's very good.
Yeah, I mean, they got a lot of pieces, particularly coming back on offense. Their schedule, as you talked about earlier, is very, very easy. So they could certainly be a 10-2 type of team. But as we've seen in years past, there's sometimes you just have flash in the pan where things just click for 1 year and then it just goes back to the norm in years after that. And what is Missouri prior to last year? A 6-6 team. So if they were
prior to last year,
everybody would be shocked by it.
Prior to last year, Eli Drinkwitz has 1 winning season, and it was not at Missouri.
Right.
I will tell you one that seems like a bold take to me because another one seems like a pretty safe take to me. I actually believe Florida is going to be okay. I think that they are going to a bowl game. I think that Graham Mertz actually gives them some advantage that people are not counting on, which is he doesn't make a lot of mistakes to beat himself. And that's going to be pretty darn important for Billy Napier. I think because of that, somebody is going to panic. And I find it hard to believe we only see one fired coach.
Yeah, I would say that's probably a little bit too bold, because I think honestly, I don't think that Coach Pittman's going to be able to last the entire season. I mean, he's already on thin ice to begin with.
So here's something I heard, and I think this is important. Do you know that there is language in his contract that instantly cuts his buyout in half if he has a overall record at Arkansas outside of the 2020 COVID season? If his overall record outside of that season is 500 or below,
Where's
and he right now is 21-18.
Ooh, so what? Game 4?
Maybe. I mean, I guess it depends on how that schedule stacks up. But yeah, I find it hard to believe he's going to survive the season.
Yeah, and look, I love Sam Pittman. I think he's a great personality. He's a great coach to have around for the, answers to the media, if nothing else, but I don't see him lasting too much longer at Arkansas. And I don't have as high of optimism when it comes to Florida. I just think that schedule is too tough, and the people down there are so ravenous when it comes to what they expect out of their head coaches.
Yep.
I can't see Napier making it to the end of the year.
Interesting. I think that they are going to be okay. One that also jumps out to me, Jackson Arnold, first-year starter at Oklahoma. Top Meyer says he outperforms Nico Iamaleava, the first-year starter at Tennessee. Dude, that system at Tennessee is designed to turn a first-year quarterback into a superstar.
This again. All right, there we go. Sorry about that.
No problem. I know we are right up against it here, but yeah, man, good show today, and I don't know if we're doing it tomorrow or not. I guess we'll play the waiting game, right?
We'll see. Again, Terry dealing with some family issues, and we'll see if we can get him back in here tomorrow. If not, we may see you again sometime this week. So regardless, that was Dimitri Ravenos doing what he does from the state of North Carolina. I'm Tyler Head. Coming up next, it is the post-game show with Jay and Elijah here on your Monday on the Game.